Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Not Guilty on All Counts stream, and I am joined by an all-star studded cast of Lambda, Don the Pleb, David Carlson, and Charlemagne. Thank you all so much for joining me today.
Absolutely welcome. Happy to be here.
What a wonderful day it is. I literally screamed at work, scaring the shit out of my boss when the verdict came in. What a great time.
Oh, I was in the same boat, but it was just my dogs.
Where were you when 11/19 happened? I remember I was sitting in the car. I just got home from work, and I don't have Twitter on my phone because it ruins my attention span. And so I opened Telegram, which is an app I don't use often, and I saw like Kyle Rittenhouse found not guilty on all accounts on Prudentialist's Telegram, and I was like, "Let's go!" I just yelled in the parking lot. It was good. It was good.
I was just solemnly sitting in my office. I mean, the tension was just crazy high. I've been watching the Rakita Law stream for like literally every day for like 2 weeks, and the amount of tension, it was just very high. I mean, you can only imagine what it was in the court. And then, when the not guilty charges were found, and Kyle like collapsed into tears. Yeah, I almost cried.
Feels like we don't get many wins these days.
Yeah.
So you've got to celebrate these for everything they've got. Squeeze out the joy. I did feel surprisingly emotional when it happened. It kind of snuck up on me.
Yeah. Me too. But it was just such a cruel and evil process that was done to Kyle Rittenhouse over the course of the last year, and the prosecution, they were just so disgusting and despicable. I mean, it's this poor kid, he just had his entire life hanging in front of him, and to see the good guys win for once, it was just a beautiful thing. Someone's echoing a little bit, by the way. It might be David.
No, that might be me. Hang on. Streamlab or StreamYards occasionally hates me.
But yeah, I mean, this has been, and I know, Charlemagne, you've probably watched just about a majority of the trial with the Rakita Law stream. But I mean, even throughout this whole week, I mean, they had they topped, I think, at like 140,000 people watching, even times when there wasn't even any part of the trial going on. I think that this has brought a lot of renewed attention to just how just messed up the American criminal justice system is. And I mean, as someone who's like even seen just a flash of it, right, with working in, trial litigation for criminal defense, the stuff that you see there is so common. And if at the very least, Kyle doing 100% lawful self-defense and still getting railroaded like that, I mean, this happens way more often than people realize.
I was wondering what effect this might have on red pilling the legal profession. That could be quite significant if all the lawyers start to, lots of YouTubers who weren't lawyers but who are on, swimming in our waters were mentioned during the live streams. So this could be a positive outcome of all this.
Yeah, I think that pool of lawyers that was on the stream, they just sort of exploded in popularity. And I mean, the entire dissident right wing was watching these streams for the last 2 weeks, and they had Jack Posobiec on today. I mean, they're all clearly based to some degree, which was interesting. I didn't realize this entire crew.
It's all the popular lawyers who aren't explicitly left wing, like Legal Eagle, for example, is pretty lefty, but even the middle of the road lawyers, I think, have now come over to this crew. So interesting.
So I think it's not going to end at the lawyers. One of those things that everybody in the even vaguely dissident right has been talking about a lot is how serious are all these people who keep showing up on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere else going, I thought up until 4 days ago that Kyle Rittenhouse shot a bunch of black people. I had no idea, right? They overtly lied. And as soon as they showed all the pictures of the victims, and don't get me wrong, they're still saying victims, but it was, I didn't know it was a 5'3" white pedophile. I had no idea. I thought that was a right-wing conspiracy.
Right. Yeah, the resident leftist in one of my group chats is like, I'm going to be honest, I thought they were all black. I didn't know, and that's the media narrative, just kind of spinning, or the cathedral, or the deep state, or whatever you want to call it. That's just it going into action to continue to provoke these tensions that are fellow white, that are that are flaring up. And I think that, like you guys were talking about the lawyers, I don't know what effect it'll have. These guys kind of did the Derek Chauvin trial too, and they didn't have as much of a viewing because less people were, defending Chauvin as they were Rittenhouse. But I don't want to get caught up in the excitement. I'm still like the pessimist, I guess, which is odd. But I think that this is only going to cause a reaction from the media, from the establishment, like we see so many times, just kind of a counter reaction. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to be honest, I haven't been following the live streams too much. I've been working a lot and been distracted a lot. I'm glad this happened. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the media is going to do in response.
If you haven't been following the trial pretty closely, this might not seem like as big of a deal as it is, because Rittenhouse's defense was kind of crap. It
was bad.
Regardless of whether or not it was lawyers or just regular commentators that I was listening to, every single person that was paying close attention to this was like, oh my God, do literally anything. Be a lawyer ever, And they still walked out and said not guilty. And along the way, tons and tons of people, the Joy Reids of the world aside, were getting red-pilled at the cyclic rate. It was, what did that idiot say just a couple days ago? Oh, this kid just walked out and shot 60 rounds. And under him are leftists going, he only shot like 10 rounds? What are you talking about? And, they've got blue waves in their names and all kinds of stuff. This is, even if it provokes a giant reaction from the media, I don't think that's going to go well for the left.
Mr. D, welcome.
Do you think...
Well, he's silent. Go ahead, Lambda.
I was just wondering whether there was some hot potatoes going on between the lawyers in the DA's office. I can't imagine any of them wanted to prosecute this. The case was so flimsy. So I wonder if they best, as it were.
Seems yes.
This was almost a punishment to end up trying to take down this guy who had a very clear, obvious self-defense charge.
So seems yes. Supposedly, and this is third-hand knowledge from whatever lawyer was spouting this off on the Rekieta stream along the way. The DA down there is known for clout chasing, effectively, and apparently this came across his desk, and he went, "No way in hell, I'm not doing it." So, yeah, there was some hot potato going on at least.
Yeah, as far as the elements of the trial goes, I mean, I can just name a few things in there that were just disgusting, as done by the prosecution. I mean, for one of the charges that got dismissed a few days ago was charging him with being in illegal possession of the AR-15 he was carrying. And the state knew this was an entirely bollocks charge from the get-go, because the law in question would have required it to be a short-barreled rifle, which it was not. It's very clear in this case that the prosecution, they were not seeking justice. They were trying to put his head on a stick as an act of political revenge. The prosecution brought the idea of it being a political trial into the trial. I mean, one of the most egregious things that happened was the fact that they were using a 3x lower resolution version of a key drone video to try and make up the fact that Kyle was pointing a rifle when he wasn't, and there's clear video of him not doing so. And they actually kept the high-resolution version of that video for themselves and did not provide it to the defense, which almost resulted in the prosecution being placed under oath in a hearing, which could have been a whole can of worms for them. I mean, they probably should have
immediately impounded that laptop that had Handbrake on it, shouldn't they?
Well, the problem is, and this is the key thing to realize from the whole trial, is the justice system has no idea what pixels are. It has no idea what resolution is. It has no idea what a frame rate is. It has no idea what compression is. It has no idea that the 4K TV being used in the courtroom the entire time has an AI upscaling algorithm in it that is modifying all of video that's being presented to the jury. I mean, it's a clusterfuck. Like there's no when digital evidence is in a trial like this, it's not it's just a bunch of nonsense. That's one of the most revealing things about this trial is the justice system's inability to deal with digital evidence.
So I think it's worse than even that makes out, because pretty clearly, the my age kind of lawyer, which is the vast majority of the lawyers that you see are somewhere my age and older. But the ish my age guys know what they're doing. And furthermore, we also all know that the judges are the people that we were hooking up their cable when we were in our 20s, that we were getting their email to work, right? Because it didn't matter if you were some tech genius, if you grew up in the 90s, mom, dad, grandpa. Hey, I don't know how to get on the interwebs. There are tubes, and can you get me on the tubes? And, you walk in there, you connect the network cable, and you're like, congratulations, you're on the internet, and you're leaving, right? And that's the judge. That's the guy that you're depending on to make a serious determination on this high-tech evidence. And the person who's pulling the wool over their eyes, right, guaranteed each and every one of us has known somebody that, I watch 70 hours of porn per week because my parents don't know what internet history is, right? And that's the dichotomy that you're dealing with. The judge is the parent. He has no idea what he's doing, no idea what he's talking about. There was a lot of speculation over the past couple of weeks that he might have known more than he was letting on. But if he knew more than he was letting on, then he knows the DA fabricated evidence.
One thing I could say, too, about the whole incident is I was watching Devin Speck's stream from last night, and he was playing a video that essentially goes over all of the entire incident in detail from every possible angle. And I saw some footage I hadn't even seen in the trial. And I mean, what Kyle did that night was just utterly superhuman in terms of pulling the trigger and hitting exactly what he intended to, and nothing more. I mean, when you watch him take out the Pedo Rosenbaum and his other assailants, I mean, and you watch what's actually happening to him, right? He gets hit on the back of the head. He gets hit by a skateboard after he's knocked to the ground, and the jump kick guy hits him as well. And then the second guy he shot was right on top of him. I mean, the barrel of the gun was in his stomach, basically, when Kyle pulled the trigger. I mean, Kyle was going to die right there. And he managed to, I mean, no one could make those shots. He falls on the ground. This is the second time he's ever even used this gun. And he just nails everyone in this adrenaline-fueled moment. And, as soon as the incident's over, he stops. He doesn't shoot anyone else. He's not shooting randomly like the disgusting prosecutors are trying to put forward. I mean, it was just, it's wild watching the situation happen and thinking what would happen with you if you were in that situation? Could you actually save your own life there? It was just crazy.
I did that when this happened.
Hello,
Mr. D.
There we go.
Hello, Oliver. How are you?
Hello, gentlemen.
Sorry about that. My internet is sheet based, as you know, and so when there's lots of people on the call, it gets very roboty. So anyway, sorry to interrupt, but go.
Oh no, the other thing that we saw from this trial, though, right, is that while Kyle is on the stand, he is literally telling us that he is struggling to maintain consciousness while all of this is happening, and manages to still fire and not waste any other shot, and still managed to get away with his life after getting hit by a skateboard, getting attacked by this jump kick man who's finally been identified. This is unbelievable. And I think that, I mean, let's play with the meme, right? This is a kid from Antioch who answered the call to go defend a community and, managed to take care of some degenerates. If that's not God's work, I don't know what is.
Exactly. There's some other noteworthy stuff
it makes me think. It makes me think to compare what he.
Go on, D.
Sorry, I think I'm getting delay. But yeah, it sort of makes me want to compare what he did with, the various military Twitter people talking about their anger at having to remove their nail polish. I don't know if you remember that I can't remember what she was. She was in the army.
She's a general.
Yeah.
There's various U.S. military people who are on Twitter who are absolutely cancerous, and I just think of what they would be capable of in that situation compared to like a 17-year-old boy from.
And the point that Charlemagne raised about being upside down for part of that, if you've done like fighting on the ground, or you've been hit in the head and like rolled, and you have to come up and orient yourself relative to proprioception, or if you've ever done something like trying to flip a kayak, to do an Eskimo roll, and you get all disoriented when you're underwater and you're trying to come up in the other direction, that kid was like upside down rolling. I don't even want to know what the diagram of his inner ear looked like. And as Charlemagne pointed out, I guess he missed one, but he hit everybody else. And the trigger was depressed when it should have been, and not when it shouldn't have been, in ways that I can't even imagine getting it that right. And he didn't hit anybody else.
Yeah,
crazy.
So the thing that upset me the absolute most is there was somebody who was right behind Kyle when the 3, 4, 10 guys are chasing him down, right? And he gets up right after smoking the two of those guys and blowing off Gage's bicep. And there's a dude running up behind Gage that stops, throws his hands in the air and backs up. And Kyle levels that AR, stops, drops, turns around, and runs away. Now, I don't care who the hell you are. I watched that happen and went, I might have shot that guy. Are you kidding me? I'm getting run down by 20, 30, 40, 50 people. That guy was within 10 feet. I mean, that's round to the face territory to me. How that didn't get played at the trial and go, this is your mass shooter. This is the guy that, the prosecution over there says is just killing everybody he can, just wants to go out and just kill people. It fully justified in the world of, at least my mind, whole mob running up on you, and he stops in the middle of a, let's face it, gunfight, and goes, nope, I'm not killing that guy, and turns around and leaves. That's incredible.
Yeah, and there's others around him. I mean, there were about a dozen people in his direct vicinity. And keep in mind, this all happened within 4 minutes, and it happened, the shooting where he's on the ground happens after he had shot Rosenbaum. So presumably he was running for like 4 minutes straight away from where Rosenbaum was, and then gets attacked, hit on the head, knocked over, kicked, hit with a skateboard, attempted to have his rifle taken away from him. And I mean, like, it's just beyond. I don't understand why the defense didn't just focus on playing the video more without all the slow-mo stuff and constant stops. Because if you just watch it as it happened, it's just levels of discipline it's hard to imagine any person having.
He basically went. He went in there and 360 no scoped only the degenerates. I feel like it's the latest the new world record speed run for Rittenhouse.
Get that Call of Duty montage.
That's what I was about to say. Someone put the hit markers on the trial footage.
Yeah, but I think they've got to distract from this. They can't have the attention on this story any longer. I'm looking to what's the new thing in the next 12 hours that's going to be dug up ready for emergencies.
You really don't think they're going to keep like pushing the divisive rhetoric?
The slightest bit of investigation, it doesn't hold up, right?
The Arbery trial articles are already starting.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So, and now,
don't forget
now we get to exactly right. Now we get to go scream, killed black man for no reason whatsoever. He was a good boy. I know we can't call him a jogger in the courtroom, but he was just out jogging like a good boy,
At least today we get to celebrate a real good boy that didn't do nothing.
Yeah. Apparently, I mean, it's isn't it Black Friday next week? I'm calling this White Friday. This is November 19th is now. It's White Friday.
I think I shared this in one of the
For the
group
white
chats
pills, of
today.
course.
But
Yeah.
I think it was Martin who posted this on Twitter, where he said that Kyle is declared not guilty on International Men's Day, while Biden is getting a colonoscopy and Kamala is technically president. What a win!
Yeah, well, Biden's going to get a colonoscopy in hell after he goes there, and Satan will have his way with him for eternity.
Well, speaking of
Yeah.
Biden, I put up on the screen his immediate press statement, and I'm going to just read the second half, so I think everyone can kind of get the gist of what's coming here. He says, "I urge everyone to express their views peacefully, consistent with the rule of law. Violence and destruction of property have no place in our democracy. The White House and federal authorities have been in contact with Governor Evers' office to prepare for any outcomes in the case, and I have spoken with the governor this afternoon and offered support and any assistance needed to ensure public safety." Does that not sound like instructions to you for pretty much repeat what happened last summer?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean,
Would be an awful shame.
it's
if
almost
something
word
terrible
for word
happens,
sometimes.
yeah.
I know,
Yeah, right.
peaceful protests, our democracy. Although I do have to laugh because he spells Evers and he puts an apostrophe S over there, which is completely unnecessary. But that's just the grammar Nazi in me coming out.
It does seem crazy that we're supposed to believe that this guy represents the will of the American people, right? Elected president, right? Joe Biden.
Well,
Moses,
this is-
Would you
81
dare
million
to
votes,
refute
man.
the Tory
and
boys?
yet we just had 12 jurors unanimously disagreeing with him. So the maths doesn't add up to me.
Now we have big white pills here because we see the YouTube just remove the dislikes, right? And this is in the wake of, as we all know, the ratios are getting enormous, right? It's always been a thing where there's tons of dislikes on the regime videos, but the ratio of dislikes is enormous at this point. It's like 10-1 in the best of cases, and it's pretty obvious that over the last couple of years there are a lot more people who are just not buying it anymore. And I think this is just more and more common. It happens on Twitter as well too. Like the ratios on Twitter are just insane, and this is on Twitter, which isn't even our territory. So their control over what's happening is really tenuous. I think that's why, as you see, they're continuing to ramp up the what do you call it? The needlecraft laws, as we see going on in Austria, right? So I don't think it's a black pill the way they're overstepping. I mean, I'm feeling really good right now. This verdict tells us that we're not as far gone as we thought we might be yet, and there might still be a way out of this that's relatively comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that there's a huge opportunity for lawyers to do more and to think outside the box. It's a bad time for me to say this because I'm having problems trying to get a lawyer to do what I want him to do at the moment. They're a miserable bunch, but there is enormous opportunity in the courtroom to communicate things that none of these people seem interested in doing. There was a friend of mine who was in prison for quite some time, and he had a friend who had ended up in prison too, and it was over having violently attacked a man who was attacking his own mother, who was elderly. And the prosecutors were all set to railroad him and the rest. And this guy who was in prison with the person in question who was about to be prosecuted is my old friend Tim, who's appeared many times on my channel and is no stranger to life's more dark corners. He suggested to the guy, he said, wait a minute, there was X period of time. They're saying that you should have waited for the police to arrive when your mother was being attacked, that there was no reason for you to go in and get involved in this violence. Well, how long did it take him to respond? And the guy said, oh, it was something like 3.5, 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And he said, well, here's what you do. Just get your defense attorneys to get one of these like crash test dummies or whatever and lay it on the floor and just start kicking and hitting it with a stopwatch going so that the jury can see how long this would have been going on, just envisioning that this was somebody's elderly mother. And the same kind of thing came to my mind. They're all talking about, oh, it was just a skateboard. Man, I grew up with skateboards and skateboarders, and they can kill your ass. And so, you know how they have the ballistic dummy heads that people do rifle practice on, where they'll shoot it with a 25 or a 44 Magnum and see what kind of effect it has, because it has the gel capsule for the brain and the blood and the rest and the flexible, skin analog on the surface. You just take that out, you lay it on the floor, and the attorney comes up in front of the the jury and smacks the hell out of the head with the solid steel trucks of a skateboard, and you get to watch it shatter and blood squirt out. And you say, have we properly established that this is a deadly weapon? Now, I'm sure that there are aspects of this that you couldn't get away with in court, under some standard or other, but you could at least try.
I think Binger literally tried to do that when he took the AR-15, pointed it at the jury directly with his finger inside the trigger, right?
That was actually extremely based. I low-key respect them for ignoring the fake and gay Reddit tier gun safety.
I think it was I'm sure Binger knows about gun safety. I think it was an intimidation.
He's a former Marine, right?
God
No
help
way.
us.
Sorry, Don.
That's not fucking real, is it?
I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere.
But the other thing, right, with the pointing of the firearm, but it was also the language too, was the purposeful intent of mass shooter, and active shooter, which I'm really glad that the defense called him out on in closing, because all that this is going to do, right, is that we're going to reinforce the language that he's a lone white male teenager, or they're going to immediately associate it with school shootings. I'm glad that they called that crap out, because that was their only strategy that they were going to do, was to poison the well of the minds of the jurors, and thankfully they saw, and clearer heads prevailed.
So one of the things on the legal front is we often wonder, like, where are all the based lawyers? Like, well, apparently there are a bunch of them, but they sort of they're not really connected to the dissident right. And I mean, they're definitely not the same phase we are. Like, I was watching that stream, and they're still talking about how sad it is that there can't be dialogue between left and right. And it's like we're so far past the point of like lamenting that there can't be dialogue. We're just in open ideological warfare with these people now. They want to destroy us. It's totally existential. It's like World War II. Like, there's a winner take all unconditional surrender situation we're in.
Know what, though? Can we pause for a minute, because I consider it a strange kind of backhanded win that we have moved from. Because this was happening during this trial. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. The pro-Rittenhouse and anti-Rittenhouse protesters are sharing pizza.
Oh my God, that was disgusting.
So
the
amazing.
pizza.
Idiots. I can't believe that.
It's just so we need more of this. Just fucking stop. On the flip side, by the end of this, it was, it's sad that we can't talk to these people anymore, but we can't. And I was like, hey, you know what? Movement. I'll take it.
Yeah. These pills take a while to digest, and the game has got it in 2012. The lawyers have only just had the first dose, so got to give them time.
They need their booster.
But yeah, it's like I tweeted about this a few weeks ago, where like it's not in the like right wing mindset to sort of vindictively seek vengeance, but this is the point where we're at. So we have this big win, and it's great, and it's a white pill, and now people need to go on the offensive. Mystery Grove was making some recommendations on this. If you live in Wisconsin, you have to go on the offensive now. Bring all of these liars like Grosswitz on the stand, and charge him. Binger and Kraus the fatty. Bring cases against them. Like, you have to fucking destroy these people, right? And launch every bit of quote unquote ammunition you can at these guys, because this is how it works, right? You have to go all in. You find mush. We found mush here. Keep pushing. You have to get these people out of fucking office. Vote in a better DA. Destroy their careers. Ruin them. They should be homeless. They should have no money. They should never work again. They should be disbarred. I mean, this is where it has to go. Hopefully that happens.
So Gage is almost certainly not going to happen, because that is reliant on the DA, right?
Yeah.
And I think we all know where the DA stands. Even if the DA himself doesn't want to touch this, absolutely he could have come down and just shut this down at any time. Like, okay, that's it, we're done. Not only was this a bad case to begin with, but it's time for you to walk in there and dismiss the charges and shut the fuck up and hope this goes away soon. And he didn't do it, right? That could have happened at right up until that verdict was read at any time. So he at least approves enough that most of the charges of all the people they were talking about during the trial, we're charging these persons, so he can claim Fifth Amendment rights so he doesn't have to testify. Those are probably all going to get dropped. On the other hand, what it's going to take to get people to go after Binger and the DA is somebody convincing Kyle. And I would fully expect that at minimum that's going to take a couple of months, right? I mean, let's face it, this kid at 17 shot a bunch of people and then spent a year of his life with half the country threatening to kill him, and then had his entire life hung directly in front of his face for 3 weeks of the trial. I mean, everybody's taken at least a week or two off after that, and most of us aren't, 18, right? Whether or not I hate these people with every fiber of my being, I'd still at least take the weekend and go get hammered,
Well, and the other thing too, right, with this momentum that needs to be taken advantage of, like, yeah, take a break. Obviously, he deserves it. But Cringewalker did send a super chat, and I normally save these for the end, but he says, "Don't forget, Kyle's friend is still getting charged for the gun that he legally owned." So, I mean, this isn't over by any stretch of the imagination. There's already conversations about suing the media and suing these people, and he should sue them like Sandman did, get millions of dollars of settlements, and just find a place to live a very quiet life so no one has to mess with this kid again. Because the fact that he managed to only, discharge 4 rounds, have one of them not hit anybody, and 3 of them hit, is a miracle. Because if we see any cop shooting video that's on the news or even on YouTube right now, I mean, what happens most of the time? Those people panic and they mag dump whoever they're shooting at. And I mean, I can understand that. And they'll tell you in concealed carry courses, which I have, they will tell you panic is likely, and you will most likely empty your magazine if you are not trained or prepared for it. And a lot of those cops aren't. And the fact that a 17-year-old kid manages to pull that off, 1, is miraculous, but 2, shows you that there's so much more that still needs to be done. Because, yeah, take a break, but the media needs to be taken care of. These people need to be routed out. Money needs to be raised against them. There should be protests the same way that we do at their homes every single day of the week. This does not need to stop.
Yeah, this raises a certain question in my mind as regards, whether or not you have to change the system or whether or not you have to change the people. And, I don't want to get too deeply into it, but it seems to be the common perspective in the civilized West that the way to deal with circumstances that are unacceptable is to change the nature of the system, and somehow thereby, over time, like, tying down the branch of the bonsai tree and adjusting it very slightly over time, you'll end up with a result that's much more civil. I am beginning to think that it has a lot more to do with just removing everyone who is wrong. Just completely removing them.
I mean, the change the system. Sorry.
This is the classic Moldbug solution. Retire all government employees.
This is the shtick, right? Is the answer here is both, right? So you can't, if you just change the people, you're going to get new people, and those people are going to suck. And partly
But are you really? If you really removed all the problem people, wouldn't that settle it right there?
Ooh, the question is what define remove?
Well,
no physical variety.
Actually, on that note, because I have a future job prospects, I'm actually only able to stick around until like 6:30, so I'm gonna have to get going. This was a lovely chat, and I really enjoyed listening to you guys talk about this and chiming every once in a while. I would like to mention something, though. I think one of the reasons we don't see so many base lawyers, like kind of talking about a former conversation, is because, most people can't practice independently. They don't have the resources or the skill set to do that, and so they're still beholden to a lot of higher ups that are more prone to being these lefty types. So there's a lot of limiting factors in that. I have a lot of friends that work in the area. I know lawyers that. They really have to. They can't be based and red pilled in real life because they'll lose their job. And these are obviously newer lawyers, but that's something to keep in mind. Prudentialist, I appreciate you having me on. I hope you guys have a lovely chat. You guys can check out my channel, DC Perspective. I don't really upload that much, but
you should get back to doing that.
Well, I'm working with the American Populist Union, which evidently you know about. That takes a lot out of me. So. You can also check that out. on Twitter and YouTube, American Populist Union. So I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a lovely evening.
Have a
Thanks
good
so
one.
much for stopping by.
See you, David.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
David. See you, man.
But no, to add on to David's point, that he's actually right, because people think that becoming a lawyer or a barrister and, you know, having that degree and starting to practice doesn't really work. Or at least the idea of, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money. No, it's not, because once you get in, the median like income salary for a lawyer is somewhere between like $48,000 to like $59,000 a year. They're dependent upon a system where it's either doing civil stuff and working for the courts, or doing criminal defense, being on the lottery of getting randomly public defender cases. You're not making a lot of money. So some of the most popular lawyers out there in town that do make money either work in real estate, or they work either just running the mill and getting, you know, all of the necessary like traffic tickets. There's an attorney in El Paso that I used to know quite well who made a six-figure salary just comfortably taking care of people's traffic tickets 365 days out of the year. I mean,
Or,
the
or
fact
chasing ambulances.
or chasing
Yeah.
ambulances, although that's a lot harder. Medical malpractice is high risk, high reward. But no, it's a mess, and it makes it very hard to get things working in the way that you want it to. And so I think David brought up a very good point.
Well, so
And
that's,
is there any other group of people that is more sensitive to social censure, more concerned with, you know, maintaining their position, being quote unquote respectable? It's sort of the nature of the beast. Not to mention the one thing you did miss there, Prude, which among the other points, which are quite correct, is the massive debt that's hanging over their head that they have to service out of the gate.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of my friends is a law student, and I'm not sure at what point he exactly is in his career, but he's like working for someone now, and you know, this is something that he has to worry about, right? Because he's going to be a lawyer, hopefully, and you know, he's based and red pilled, but he's going into this den of snakes, right? And he's just gonna have to live with that forever. So,
Yeah.
like, what do you do?
Well, that was the thing that I've got a couple of friends who are lawyers, and they became lawyers not that long ago because they're generally in my age group, and they all had statements similar to the lines of, as long as there's hungry lawyers out there, right? And what that came down to is that at the time I was living in California. Right, so keep the wages in perspective for living in California. These guys are getting out of law school making $20 an hour as a lawyer with, you know, Mycroft right there, $130,000 average debt for a lawyer. So they're paying the student loans. They're living in one-bedroom apartments. They've got roommates, and they're freaking lawyers, right? Now, most of them, after 3 to 5 years, are making more like $40 to $50 an hour. Again, keeping in mind it's California, and so that is a much lower number wherever you live that's not there. But still, you know, they're 5 years in paying off student loans, even if they are making $50 an hour in California, because let's face it, living out there is financially untenable. But these guys are, you know, what are you going to do? You can't complain. You can't say anything. You can't go, hey, this case is woke as hell and stupid. Why the hell should we take this? Because the answer is, you want to get paid this week? Well, then get billable hours.
Yeah, or do you want to be disbarred? Because there are all sorts of things that the legal community in the given state can do if they decide that, you know, you've done something beyond the pale, like, you know, made an anonymous donation that we then doxed you about, you know, to support the terrible Kenosha killer.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's another thing is, Semiogogue, I think it was you that said, you know, these guys, is there anyone else worried about whether or not they look pristine? And no, because there's very few other professions that have a code of conduct that says if you do any of this stuff and we subjectively decide that you violated these rules, then you're out. You know, and as close as you get is what, the military? You know, cops, technically, but
probably the medical profession too, though. Of course, that's been dumped overboard like a corpse off a ship. You know, they don't give a damn about their oath or any of their other obligations. But you would imagine that in a world where it mattered, this other member of the professional class, armed as he is with a white collar around his neck, speaking Latin to, you know, enjoin us to make good life decisions, this upstanding member of the community, you would imagine that they would be held to that same standard too. But no, they're not. It's funny though that you point out the military, because that's a real thing, you know, And I'll throw one more in for you with the attorneys, is that is usually the trampoline they use, you know, the little imbecile trampoline in the backyard that they can run up and get a good bounce off of to leap into their political careers. And so that tends to make them even more sensitive towards taking a position of any kind. And it's like what I used to say to my clients in branding is like, God damn it, man, stand for something. I don't give a fuck what it is. Yeah. Just have your brand actually stand for something, and there will be a constituency that will solidify around it. But this need to be able to adopt and then discard positions by turns, which seems to be a requirement now of the horse circus that we call politics. It just leads people never to take any position of any kind, any real one.
And that's the shtick, right? And why so many of these people are like they are, right? Now, don't get me wrong. There's also pretty heavy incentives to not piss off the left, right? Because if you piss off the right, we make memes about you and shitpost for a while. If you piss off the left, they go directly to the bar, and you know, if you're a lawyer, and they say, "Hey, this guy did this unconscionable thing by saying there are only two genders," right? You know. And the bar is shockingly like every other profession. You find all the people who can actually do the job out doing the job, and they tend to be the more conservative ones. And all the people who can't do the job are the ones in all the administrative positions, like being at the bar.
I mean, yeah, it's the age-old expression. If you can't do, teach. And those people end up in middle management, HR, and define the rules. And I mean, and here's what the worst part is. So in Texas, right, when it comes to, say, writing how the bar rules are when you get in trouble, or even writing how they basically are the outlines of what proper conduct is, those aren't written by experienced attorneys. Those are written by people fresh out of law school, looking for a way in, looking for connections, and they will write out these rules, and they will review conduct provided by people who complain to the bar about an attorney's conduct. And every time that that's happening, you are literally being determined whether or not you're going to have a trial in front of the ethics committee by a bunch of postgraduates who know nothing but the critical race theory crap that's being taught in law school since the 1970s. Many such cases.
Yeah, it's a good point. The point of origin for all of this crap we have to deal with now with CRT, as most of you will know, but perhaps some of our listeners don't. It came straight out of lawfare. It was developed in a legal context because they understood, as they were beginning to put it together, that they had to find some way to foundationally attach it to legal and constitutional issues, which is what we've seen, frankly, with everything across the board. And yet we're out here dog paddling, half-assed in our approaches, but there's certain, this does underscore the need for people to figure out how to work together. And I think that has to do, to some extent, just to pitch my own little thing, with the branding of it. There's got to be a way that you can present addressing these things that is not smeared with just gobbets of feces, which is what the left specializes in. And that's going to require some thinking and some doing. And we should all be doing our own respective parts to figure out how to foster that cooperation.
Talking of the legal profession and its effect on society, I was thinking about how AA's thesis is that everything is essentially downstream from law.
Don't be giving me that shit.
One of the reasons that we were also interested in whether you agree with that thesis or not, one of the reasons,
it's my thesis.
Yeah. Okay. whether you agree with it or not, viewers, the interesting thing about this trial was it was kind of a litmus test of where we're at, I think, especially where America is at with regards to justice. Do we still have a society that believes in truth, or have we been totally subverted by the politics and the narrative? And I was taking a step back and thinking, we're having this big celebration and party moment and hooray, finally a W. But this is sort of a celebration of having cleared the absolute lowest bar, because there's no way you could look at that fact pattern and come to any other conclusion. But then, Prudentialist, could you possibly bring up Biden's statement? Because I thought that was interesting to read what he said if you have it in mind.
Yeah. Let me pull it back up again, and I can get it for you. But
yeah, so remember what we just saw was to any kind of observer who is not biased, a very obvious jury decision on a case that is pretty unambiguous. The only reason you'd question the outcome is because the people who were shot were associated with Black Lives Matter, which is a progressive movement. So he says, while the verdict in Kenosha will leave many Americans feeling angry and concerned, myself included, why would you be angry and concerned? And then a little bit later, I know we're not going to heal our country's wounds overnight, but I remain steadfast in my commitment to ensure that every American is treated equally. So what's his concern? It's that people are not being treated equally. I think we can read through the tea leaves here and say actually what he wants is this outcome possibly to stop happening. He's concerned and things need to change. He's saying
a dog whistle? Are you saying it's a dog whistle, Lambda?
I think
fucking dog whistle?
Prudentialist pointed to the second paragraph here, but I think the first is actually the key one. We just saw an obvious case of justice being done, and the immediate response from the mouthpiece of the authorities is, this is displeasing to me, and I'm looking at making changes so that this kind of justice stops being the case.
Well, we saw this in the press where everyone was complaining about the jury makeup, even though it was entirely consistent with the demographics of that area. They were like, wow, it looks about white to me. And you can see this on Twitter from just about everybody who is on the race grift on the left. And I mean, this is what they want, is that they don't want a jury of your peers. And I mean, we can talk about jury of your peers in a minute, because I did a pretty lengthy thread on that earlier this week. But a jury of your peers, they don't want you to be, being judged by people that look like you. Even if it's a bunch of white women that more or less determined his fate on this trial, they don't want you to have a jury that looks like you. They want a jury that doesn't like you, that doesn't have an in-group preference, that hates you on the basis of your skin color and your race. That's what they want.
But we should expect much less clear-cut cases than this to still be seen as self-defense. The fact that we've been reduced to Kyle, the superhuman robot who's been teleported from the future, to only act perfectly in every situation, and we're celebrating him getting off. Like, that's how low we've stooped to, that this is a big event for us, that any kind of justice still exists.
Yes, we have stooped low, and the only way to go to get back up is to fucking stand up and fight back against these evil people. That's why I'm really hoping that, Kyle sues the fuck out of all these disgusting rodents who work in the media, literal subhuman trash who should not have any property to their name at all. It should all be taken from them for all the money they've stolen from all of us over the years. You know how many people have been banned and censored. Take it all back tenfold. Sue Biden, sue every one of these bastards in the Congress who's tweeting against Kyle right now, and get all the money you can from these people. That's what I hope he does. We have to stand up for ourselves. What Biden is concerned about, he's concerned that white people have not thrown in the towel. He's concerned that people are still able to stand up for themselves. They now have a symbol with which to direct their actions through. So, that's why they're concerned. They're concerned because they're worried we're going to flip the whole fucking table over in this big gay party they're having.
It's the whole business of the only acceptable response to attack being suicide. And that was just set back 2 steps. Definitely these people need to be dealt with civilly and lawfully. But but with otherwise with extreme prejudice, to use the old saw. There's the whole idea of many people out there, like your Trump or various people in Congress and the rest who like to get out there and talk about how a strongly worded letter needs to be written rather than anything substantive being done. And you know what? You could say that there's an excuse for their behavior or their lack of action, to be more precise. There's an excuse for it up to this point because there was the whole issue. If you're going to claim to defend our Constitution, whatever you think about it, it is the convention that we all, in theory, agree to. You have to wait until the finding of the court, or the jury, however it's adjudicated. That's happened. That has now happened. And so every one of these slithering opportunists in the background should be identified as such if they do not come forward at this point and do all that they can to push forward the very things that Charlemagne just mentioned. You know, these people need to be dealt with criminally wherever that's possible. If there's one of these Soros-appointed DAs or, you know, some similar type acting as a dweller on the threshold there, blocking any such movement, then there need to be civil actions across the board. And certainly focusing on the most verminous of vermin, the so-called mainstream media.
Yes, every possible legal vector must be pursued against these people. We can never rest on our laurels.
Yeah, and I mean, lawfare is essential, but Oren has the best line I think I've seen. This doesn't end until there are tanks on Harvard campus. And that's what I think should be the end goal, and that's the only Fed posty thing I'm going to say today. But this has been a clear sign of how you can look at the record of everybody over the last 2 weeks. Who on earth has been pro, Kyle, and who hasn't been? And I've seen maybe like 3 candidates running: the Joe Kent guy, BG Masters, and JD Vance. I'll support those guys. Everybody else who's either had their mouth shut, retweeted David Frum, retweeted the conservative case for getting your ass beat in front with a skateboard. All those kind of people need to go. They need to be sued for libel, slander. All of it needs to happen as soon as possible.
So somewhere in there was, this doesn't end until there's tanks on Harvard campus, and not enough, right? And I don't mean that in Fed posting. I absolutely, I don't care about the tanks. I want a bulldozer on the Harvard campus, and I will drive it personally and drive it through every single one of those buildings, right?
One that a welder puts steel plates on?
I mean, if it's available, but
just leave room for venting air.
That's it right there. Is this is over when they're literally bulldozed, when there's nothing left, when we're salting the earth where Harvard used to be and putting up a sign that says, never again, or fucking whatever, with a big, long, in stone monument that says this damn place was hell on earth, literally, and it was minting demons, never create another one on planet Earth, and we come by annually and celebrate the destruction of one of the worst things that ever existed in this country.
Harvard delenda est.
Leave not one stone standing upon another.
You got it.
We just have to convince them that building buildings by putting stones on top of each other is a legacy of white supremacy, and they'll dismantle their own campuses.
So just wind them up and point them in a particular direction. I'm so happy to see this image. Who wants to vent first about these fucking scum?
These fingers.
God, I hate bingers. What did they tweet today? They tweeted some like gay fashion show they're having.
Yeah,
that's what you tweet today. After what just happened, is you tweet about your gay fashion show. Like, what the hell even is that?
It's a gay fashion show in military uniform.
These grifters who run companies like this are the absolute lowest tier people on the entire planet. I hate them worse than the leftists. It's just disgusting how they prey on the right like this. There's a really good article on Revolver going over what Black Rifle Coffee did. It might even be by Darren Beatty. Black Rifle, do not buy. These people are not on your side.
And not just passively. It's not just passive. Remember, the teaching of the golden rule. It is not do unto others what you don't want them to do unto you. It's an active principle. Don't just not buy their coffee. Do unto them. Do unto Black Rifle. Contact them, mock them, share their craven, nasty nature. Look, just draw out for people. Look, the name of the damn brand is Black Rifle. It's got a semi-automatic rifle. Well, I don't know. Maybe perhaps it's fully automatic.
It's got an AR on it, one way or the other.
They're liars. They are opportunistic liars and scumbags who want to wring you like some sort of dirty dish rag to get everything they can out of you with their nonsense. How dare they? I'm sorry to sound like Greta Thunberg, but look at the imagery. How fucking dare they?
This is the shtick, right? The golden rule is a two-way street. Once they instruct you what it is that they would do unto you, what is the end of that? As you would have them, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Well, they told you what you should do unto them. Go forth and make these motherfuckers pay in every way humanly possible.
Civilly and lawfully.
I mean, ideally, I guess.
Ideally.
No.
Although I
civilly
think
and
AA said
lawfully.
it. AA said it best though. Do unto others that you would not like done to yourself. And I think that this is a high time with like Black Rifle Coffee and virtually any other of these grifters. What needs to happen next is I don't care what anyone at Con Inc. says. Cancel them, boycott them, let them know every single day you will tweet at them until they block you, and you will create another account to tweet at them again. And you will ensure that they are canceled and that no one buys from these gay, in the Navy types that want to just enjoy wearing a uniform, looking cool before they decide to go bum each other off camera. I'm sick of these people.
You know
on
what?
On board the Harvey Milk. Yes.
Do yourselves a favor, and you're all going to hate this, but do yourself a favor anyway. Go find a reason why the left will think that they're racist, right? Because
or
the
find a
left,
cockroach in the damn bag.
yeah, that too, But the left will go after them and do everything they can to get them canceled. Now, don't get me wrong, Con Inc. will still support them, but Con Inc. will support them no matter what, right? But the left will go out there and make sure that they get removed from store shelves. They will go out to, those Safeways and the Walmarts and go, hey, don't carry Black Rifle Coffee. And on top of that, they will launch the lawsuits. So we can all go try and do it ourselves, or we can go tell the left, hey, we hate that thing. Go get rid of it for us.
I mean, it would
So-
also probably make sense to find a certain number of people who all agree. Like, if you could say, does Don agree? Does Charlemagne agree? Does Prudentialist agree? Do I agree? Does AA agree? That we would be willing to push a particular case to the forefront of people's awareness and put up some sort of fundraising for it, and then just find one lawyer, a good one, do the proper research, find someone who knows what they're doing, pick something that is winnable, and then go directly for that, or pick some project which is like to civilly and lawfully utterly destroy Black Rifle Coffee. So we're like, look, we're just going to raise this money to put together a team of people, and we're going to look at how they do business, and we're going to scope out these attorneys. Now, that probably wouldn't be at the top of the list for something that's easily doable, and we need a clear win. So, don't take that too seriously in terms of brainstorming. But there are any number of things out there where some of those who have arrayed themselves against us have their asses hanging out a window, big time, bare-assed. And you're just waiting for that opportunity. So I think it's well within our power. And even if it's not some lawfare related thing, we should pick something that we wish to see happen, state it as an achievable goal that's measurable, and then undertake it within the time frame we've set ourselves. Because there's an enormous value in deciding to do something as a group, cooperating to make it happen, and then seeing it happen. You'll find that people flock to you. What everyone is desperate for out here is someone who says they're going to do something and then fucking does it. And I think that's well within our power. I mean, how many people, if you put, a few of these channels together, you at least have an audience of 60 to 100,000 people that you're going to be able to reach with just some of these medium and smaller sized channels. So all it takes is people getting together and saying, look, this is what we wish to do. We think it is achievable. We think it can be done within X time frame. There's a good chance of it, and it's probably going to cost X amount of money. Then put that case to the public, and you better have it right, because if the first one out of the gate does not succeed, then you ain't got no momentum. And in fact, you've done more harm than if you had just kept quiet in the first place. But if you're careful and identify one, I think that's out there. And, we should be doing it. Others who perhaps don't have any real relationship to us at all, who hear about this, who might have resources of their own, they should be thinking about this too.
So the taking scalps thing is pretty important, right? Whether anybody, and so is the careful target selection. Because, and this is a thing that I have gotten a lot of crap for over the years, is I've told people for years, do something, do anything, right? Oh, well, so we should go crap on Nancy Pelosi's door? No. Like, okay, that was funny, and the memes were amazing, and that's great, but that is not the point, right? But getting people who are ginned up to do positive things and then pulling them back when they want to do something stupid is a lot easier than taking everyone who has been sitting around black-pilled for 5 years and going, hey, how about we do something to begin with? And nobody ever wants to hear that, but it's true. And that's why, and I would say keep the black rifle thing in mind, right? Because, look, let's be honest, we probably have some of the most concentrated autism on the internet outside of 4chan at all of our disposal. The chances that Black Rifle isn't doing something that we could at least harass them for enough that they would have serious problems for the rest of their lives is basically zero. I mean, simply getting together enough tax autists and going over their filings over the past few years would probably be enough to get the IRS to go audit them. And by the way, that's
disgruntled employees. Don't forget
Exactly.
disgruntled employees.
Incredibly low cost and high impact. Nobody wants to be dealing with the IRS. Not to mention, right now it's Biden's IRS. You better believe they're auditing people as fast as they possibly can. And, a conservative company? We can go after a conservative company? Yeah.
Quote unquote conservative. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, OSHA is just a phone call away.
That's right. And
OSHA's a phone call away, and so is one disgruntled female employee with a vacuous Me Too accusation.
there we go, right? Any of these things. So when I say, get the left on this, I don't mean, retard Twitter egg bots. I mean, the left set up a giant power structure here that will be more than happy to go after anything that calls itself conservative. And that's what we've got here, is something that the right is growing to hate that calls itself conservative. We can.
That's a very good point. Very good
almost
point.
no effort, we could probably destroy these people.
Talking of giant power structures, since what we're talking about today is something that's come out of current affairs, the things that are being pushed on Twitter, etc., are we sure that we're not being sucked into talking about something as a distraction, as a mode of containment? Is there some tactics going on that we're missing, or is this actually a win?
This is a small reprieve from something much larger. And I think that while this gives us the necessary momentum to do things, of course there's going to be things that they'll clamp down. There's already talks and rumors going around that the DOJ is looking into this. There's talks that the prosecutors are going to look for some kind of review at an appellate court. That shouldn't stop us, though, from taking all of this energy and not looking at it like we have done in the past. Every time that something like this happens, where there's even the modicum of a win, it's viewed as a pressure release valve. The same with elections. Everyone got so excited over Youngkin winning in Virginia, and now all of a sudden one of his policy advisors is a gay guy with pronouns in his bio and is saying that he's not going to do anything about mandates inside of the state. All of this means is that, yay, we celebrated the elections, and it's like that scene at the end of Finding Nemo where they're in the bags and they got into the ocean and they go, okay, now what? And they never do anything after that. This should be the opportunity to take that momentum, like we're discussing, and using this for something that actually has a long-term viable option for being, something that we can actually accomplish, not just meaningless talk or saying, well, this is what we should do. And if one of the earliest conversations I've ever had started doing commentary was with Don, even before I made my first video. And this is something that I'm glad that all of us are on here, because we're all from different perspectives and views. And Don had always said, listen, right wing, we may not agree on everything, but here's the first target that we need to examine. And I think that is the perfect thing that we can do right now, is channel our energy on some of the obvious structural issues right in front of us.
So let's pretend that for a moment that this isn't a what if, right? It is overtly, I don't know, the powers that be came down, walked into the jury room and went, we're going to kill your children if you don't let Kyle Rittenhouse off, because we're passing the Raping Babies Act right now, and we kind of need that not in the news, right? And the jury were all like, holy shit, we like our own children, and they're not babies anymore, so okay. Still, win is a win. And don't degrade it under the pretense that we might lose some other thing some other day. And we are really good at doing that, right? There's no time ever that the right wants to take a win. For example, Virginia guy, right? Virginia guy is not a great win, but we went from a governor of Virginia who said, I'm going to mandate the entire state be locked down, I'm going to mandate the entire state to get vaccines, to one who went, well, I'm not going to stop localities from mandating it. Right. Now, whether or not that's the win we all would have liked to have seen, still a win, right? It's it's halfway there. It's hey, the major, Fairfax or whatever is going to be locked down, is going to have mandates, but 90% of the geography of the state of Virginia will not have mandates, and will probably have localities going, dear businesses, even if you want to have mandates, we're not going to let you, and that is overtly a win, right? But we go, well, he's not as aggressive as we would like. We still
It's
want.
like the classic purity spiral thing, right?
Yeah.
Don't let the
On
perfect
this,
be the enemy of the good or whatever. Yeah.
On this topic, I mean, the regime is basically going all in right now because they're expecting everyone to just fold. But as it's been pointed out frequently, it only really takes 10 to 20% of the population to reset the regime, and they're counting on the fact that they're just going to, cut us out of the economy, and we'll just die off. And if we prevent that from happening, there's not going to be anything they can do about it. So, like, you need if you have like a small business, or if you know people with businesses, I mean, you basically need to be prepared to. You should really be discriminating in favor of people who have not been penetrated in terms of hiring and who you do business with very proactively, right? You should proactively discriminate against people who have been penetrated, and be prepared to support and build this alternative economy, because as long as that thrives, we're just going to win. They will lose, and they're going all in right now. And I don't think people should feel isolated. What's happened today is it should show us how not isolated we are. And if your employment is at risk, you can still live outside of the system. There are people who would hire you. There are places you can work. There is going to be an alternative economy set up, and the first movers, it might be the highest risk for those people, and some might fall off, but it's like it's the only way to get out of this at this point. So it's like,
that's going to be another thing that's going to be kind of important, right? Those first movers, the people who not, let's be honest, probably not any of us, because we've all been out here doing this for at least a year, right? Those people who take big moves do literally whatever you can to support them, right? It's probably not going to be amazing. No, well, I actually have base right-wing views and make coffee. Okay, well, I'll buy your coffee and advertise that. And if literally that's all you can do, then that's all you can do, but you have done something. It's not amazing, it's not giant, but it is better. And for once, can we just accept that better is indeed better?
Yeah, I would present an argument that this is not a false win. This isn't something that we're being handed as there's absolutely no way that the authorities want the general public to believe that there's such a thing as self-defense, and you can carry a gun, and you can even go to a protest that's being run by Black Lives Matter with a gun, and if they try and attack you, you can shoot people. There's zero chance that that is a message that they want people widely to know. So I think they definitely, the mainstream media were only pushing this story because they thought that the jury were not going to unanimously acquit, and they thought the brainwashing was too strong. So I think they would take. I think this is a win. We should be in the party spirit because we've got one up on the board, and yeah, as I said at the beginning of the stream, we don't get these very often. So let's enjoy it.
No, we don't.
Take it where you can get it.
Yeah, it's not a fake win, because there's no way that this verdict could have been selected as some sort of psyop, right? I mean, these jurors decided on their own what the verdict was going to be, and that's that. And it's a genuine defeat. People like to get into conspiracy theories, but I don't even remember what the topic was. It was Afghanistan, right? But sometimes the regime takes an L, and this is one of the L's, and they're taking more and more of them lately, and we need to keep delivering them.
Yeah.
If it was for real, would they have had MSNBC staff or whatever, or contractors, whatever the hell it was, trying to follow jurors home to intimidate them.
No way.
Just like Youngkin, as bad as he is, and believe me, that dude has all the signals of dog shit stuck to the bottom of your shoe. Yeah. Nevertheless, think of how much money got dumped into the blue alternative and how hard they pushed for that, and it did not happen.
Well, this is... while I would not appreciate pushing, the McCain, right, the ridiculous neocon, worthless globalist piece of crap that he was, in any other context, if I could unseat Nancy Pelosi tomorrow and put McCain there, I would do it in a heartbeat, right? Because at minimum, he has any conservative view, and Nancy Pelosi does not, right? And this is how the left built their power structure. They didn't run AOC in 1981, right? Well, somewhere around there, they did run somebody like AOC, which just got slaughtered in a national election. And so they knew, well, you got to run a little bit slower than that. You can't just push straight to the end. You got to take the small victories. You got to make, the Bill Clintons of the world president of the United States before you can get, Joe Biden doing what Joe Biden's doing, before you could get Barack Obama. And they did that. And we just absolutely refused to, right? Earlier was the, is self-defense still being a thing a win? And the answer there is yes, if only because it demonstrates that people down on the ground level don't go, I think Antifa should beat people to death. I think that's a good thing, right? General everyday people are not accepting any of that crap. And MSNBC is out there being like, well, not only should they be allowed to, they should be doing it more often. This is a heavy loss narrative.
I also think a mistake we often get into is equating celebrating a win with being white-pilled. I think even slowing down decline is worth doing. So whatever you believe about the ultimate destiny of the future and whether or not it's predictable, like we can all be pleased that justice has held forth for today.
Breaking news: Tucker Carlson to interview Kyle Rittenhouse on Monday night.
No shit.
According to a Wall Street Journal reporter, so seems legit.
I want to add another thing in here because there's the whole business of the right wing, and they generally do not wish to push. They do not wish to be considered authoritarian or whatever it is, right? I mean, as you can see so colorfully attested in the behavior of the so-called libertarians. But the term that they use to refer to, taking action against a defeated foe, because that's how this would be characterized. Why would you want to go after them? They already lost. Just let sleeping dogs lie. And I'm like, you have no idea how apropos dog is in that metaphor. But they would call it vindictive. And so I thought, let's just take a quick look. Let's look at the etymology of vindictive. Is it a bad thing to be vindictive? Well, let's look at the etymology. Late 15th century, act of avenging revenge. That's how we consider it now, right? But it comes from Old French, vindication, vengeance, revenge, and directly from Latin vindicationem, nominative vindicatio, act of claiming or avenging. Noun of action from the past participle stem vindicare, lay claim to, assert, claim for freedom, set free, protect, defend, and then as sort of a secondary semantic value, avenge. So it's probably from vindicare, to show authority. So the moment that the word, oh, that would be vindictive comes into your mind, well, think to yourself, yeah, and the core of that is to show authority, to protect and defend. So vindictive.
The problem we have is that we have transposed the definition of vindictive in any way, shape, or form with the definition of the word petty, right? And I don't think we should be petty, right? Like, if the AOC dress thing was petty, right? And nobody cared. The entirety of the right wing was like, this doesn't matter at all. One asshole on Twitter thought this was funny and a big deal, and the left exploded into something giant. And rightly, I think the right goes, well, we don't want to be petty, right? But when, and look at the federal elections for instruction here, when Hillary Clinton is doing horrible shit, it's, well, we shouldn't go after her. And the correct word to put in what came next was, we shouldn't be petty. And the problem is, that's not being petty, right? That woman deserved everything that could possibly have happened to her. For reference, I still have no information that could lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton, and I'm not feeling suicidal. However, she would have deserved every minute of it. On the other hand, look at what's happening to Bannon, right? The left has no problem with what they specifically would call petty, right? Hey, Bannon looks like he's being effective at all. So get the hell rid of this guy. Make sure that he goes away. And if that means that we have to go after him for the last election, which we just spent 4 years telling you would be petty bullshit and horrible and the end of the country and blah, 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 then we're going to do it, right? And we need to get over the left calling us petty in any way, shape, or form. Because they're gonna, no matter how righteous your quest is, they're gonna call you petty.
So there's
make it impossible for them to speak.
Yeah, and to come in here, there's a couple of points that I want to make on the idea about businesses or those people taking risks. So Nod Steve pointed out in the chat that Stocking Mill Coffee is already set up in competition with Black Rifle, and I do follow them. They're actually based. I would go support them. I would advertise for them. If they were to ever wanting to do sponsorships, I would probably do it. I'd buy their product. That's something that we should probably keep in mind. This is probably a little early for me to announce, but I am working on a project, and I'm probably going to present this at the event in February for those attending, is that I'm trying to put together sort of a network where we can have those things, where there are businesses where people can look up in their area what's nearby. If they're a small business owner, if they're not going to follow these rules, if they're actually on our side, we can go for them. The same with lawyers, same with shop owners and things like that. The other thing that I think that we should also do, along with that sort of networking, is try to set up some kind of fund. We know plenty of people in our circles that have real life jobs, whether they're engineers, whether they're professors, whether they're someone that makes a substantial living and have a family to take care of. We should be able to take care of them on our own. And I like what Andrew Torba of Gab's doing, trying to set up his own funding system, trying to set up his own financial system. Those kind of endeavors, I think, need to be supported. And then the third thing that I would add is that on the issue of being petty or vindictive, one of the things that I hate about even like normie right-wing discourse or discussion is that no one ever pushes it in the rightward direction. And I think that we're kind of beginning to see that change, and that momentum should be seized. I said this in a video about maybe right after the election, was that we have to defend our radicals. Even people like us who are considered outside the Overton window. Okay, fine, we're outside the Overton window. But if that means that Charlemagne gets attacked by someone like some blue check mark on Twitter, am I going to be like, well, Charlie was out of line? No, I'm not. I'm going to defend Charlemagne until I'm fucking banned off Twitter, because I'm sick of these people telling me what is right and what is wrong. Or, oh, I'm being petty. Oh, I'm being, a pain in the ass. I'm tired of that. That means I have to defend Don. I have to defend Semiogogue. I have to defend these people, because why? They're my camp. We're pushing things in a positive direction. We're actually doing something, and that needs to be done. And the fact that the right hasn't had this ability to get in, oh, is this the right thing to do? Oh, let sleeping dogs lie. No, because every time that we've let sleeping dogs lie, as Machiavelli had said to the prince, they will come back and they will rebuild and they will destroy you. And that is essentially what's been happening to the right wing in this country for the last 150 years.
Exactly.
Tell me, Conan, what is best in life?
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women.
I don't know if other people view it this way, but in my mind, I always visualize there's the landscape. The Overton window is like the territory in the two-dimensional landscape where people live, and I imagine forces kind of galloping around it. The left forces are trying to seize land over here, and we're now. We need to be coordinated, because in real battles, if you can push together, you can do all sorts of tactics. Sometimes what we're missing, I think, online is any kind of coordination. There's a sort of scatterbrained approach where it's just everyone's fine. So if you're way off in enemy territory and you do something stupid and you get taken out, you can't expect the rest of the army to support you on your solo project. But if this may be a moment where we gather our forces and say, okay, the legal world, stuff to do with maybe gun rights now becomes a little bit of a ground we choose to attack, because looks like the enemy are a bit weak there now. let's charge forwards. And yeah, like talking of real life battles, when does the most effective fighting happen? When the enemy are routed, when you're pursuing. That's when you start to
When
take
you can
people out.
ride them down.
Yeah, we need to send the cavalry forwards at this moment.
So there was, in sort of the same line, and to piggyback sort of off what the Prudentialist was saying, it needs to sort of be both, right? If Charlemagne, because apparently he will be the line of who we are all discussing for this, is being attacked on Twitter, and the right shows up and goes, "Well, was Charlemagne precisely correct?" The answer needs to be, don't care, bottom text, right? Just, there is no argument to be had here. If Charlemagne and I want to go have a stream later and discuss whether or not he was correct, or sit there and discuss in DMs, hey man, I think you went about this the wrong way. I think you were factually incorrect on these 5 things. That's fine. Praise in public, correct in private. When blue check douchebag is out there going, well, this Charlemagne guy is a right-wing reactionary, every single answer underneath that should be damn right. And fuck you, right?
I totally agree on the praise in public, criticize in private, but I think also we should be encouraging coordinated action. So if you choose to say something controversial in an area which we've all agreed to surge on, you should expect a groundswell of everybody with you on that. If you're off in random territory, distracting and potentially doing something unhelpful for the broader strategy, then maybe supporting that is actually unhelpful. I'm not saying shoot it down. We don't need to be aiming our snipers across the battlefield and taking out our own troops. But,
metaphorically speaking.
Yes,
and in Minecraft.
Metaphorically speaking, and in Minecraft. So this is why the praise in public, correct in private is a good idea, right? As notorious right-wing hothead that I am, we will say that I have done, overreached in some fashion. If everybody on this panel DM'd me and was like, "Hey man, like, good initiative, bad judgment, bro," like, good for you for telling these people that they should be ejected into the sun. They should, right? We all agree. On the other hand, maybe you shouldn't be on the 6 o'clock news in every state in the fucking country saying kill leftists, right? Maybe not that.
Don't.
No.
Yeah.
All right.
Now,
Well,
another comment I was. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry, Lambda. This is just very fast. We don't have lawyers, but guess what we do have? Even on this panel tonight, vile as they are, they're not as bad as lawyers. We have 2 programmers. And what people in this world are better equipped in this age of our networked existence to create and provide tools making possible precisely the kind of coordination that is required. I just saw we have Academic Agent in the chat saying the same thing. If you can coordinate, it's something very, very different than someone, and it's not simply a thing of, well, you've got 3 people, it's 3 times 1 person. There's also the whole greater than the sum of its parts. And, that's why I've been doing my business. I'll just go ahead and plug it here about a calendar, just a calendar by itself. If anybody's interested in that, they can check out my last clip. But there are many other things that I haven't even thought about. That such things are very much on the minds of those who know more about it, like the programmers who are with us this evening. And I happen to know that just in Academic Agent Circle, there have to be 4 or 5 at a minimum. So, I mean, look to what you do have as a resource and figure out how you can exploit that.
All right.
Programmers are like the heavies.
Yeah, programmers kind of need to be given a task to do, though. We don't really do stuff on our own very frequently.
I will happily.
I will send you a DM for the project I'm working on, Charlemagne.
So we should probably not all discuss this on stream because it's autistic as shit. But we should all sit down and discuss this after the stream at some point, because some of this stuff I've been working on very quietly for like a couple of years because, I am small and move slow. But what are you going to do? And I'm more than happy to, dump off what I have. By all means, carry it forth and do it. Because if you can get it done faster than me, who's trying to do 40 projects at once, then go.
Yeah.
It's more important that it's done.
This was one of the things I was going to say earlier in the stream is we were using a lot of passive language. This is how the right needs to behave. Somebody should take the leadership. And I think more often than is generally acknowledged, the people who should be the leaders are the visual content providers, the people who are actually known. We're not just commenters. We're not just entertainers. We're the people who are, a big part of leadership is an identifiable face and a name, and you shouldn't also have a puppet leader who is merely an actor and there's somebody behind the scenes pulling the strings. You want a cohesive package. I'm thinking, I'm providing my own ideas, I'm doing the planning. I mean, I think I don't need to say this to you guys because, I mean, the amount of, Prudentialist just announced a project that he's working on. Don, you've got 40 projects going. Semiogogue's running endless things. Charlemagne's a thought leader in 20 areas. So, it was something that I thought earlier in the stream. And actually, you guys are 100% leading the charge in the way that is, I think, totally natural. Like, coordinated action is a result of strong individuals in leadership positions who seize the moment.
Well, there's one lawyer there who has offered to help, and I actually received contact from one lawyer. They're not all bad people. Lots of them are not. And, those very few that you can start with in the beginning, cultivate them and see, ask them quite upfront. I mean, if they're like this guy, bold enough to go ahead and say he'll help out of the blue and do a super chat in order to make it happen.
He's a good guy.
I was going to say, Jimmy's been around a long time. He's good people.
Right, but if you can get a couple of those, and like I said, I had one, a junior attorney who contacted me some time back and was saying he could do something, put them together, put them in a little group, help them to think together. It's like two fireflies in the same jar, produces more light. And at a certain point, you cross a threshold and there are people willing to get on board and help. I think Lambda's right that, leader figures are important, but there's a reason that they're rare. The combination of personal characteristics that make that possible are not the kind of thing that you commonly find. Just the characteristics of being willing to, open your mouth publicly about this, that's hard enough to find in and of itself. And then you have to look, if you take the sort of the old view of the what was that damn book, The Tipping Point, and some of those other damn Malcolm Gladwell books that punished everyone for a period of about a decade there. They talk about the people who are networkers, and there are people who are like that. I mean, Academic Agent really stands out like that, but we have to look and identify those people who are willing to help and try to put them in a room together with other people, because things just happen when you do that. When people, it's that whole networking thing, which I hated during the period when I had my own small business. Well, we've got to go to a networking business event tonight, and we get the big eye and glad hand. But sometimes you did meet people, and as everyone who knows anything about this subject is aware, if you go to something like the Wharton School of Business or Harvard Business School, it's not what you get taught in the classes that matters. It's who you get to write down in your little phone book. And so networking beyond the realm of the known personalities, sort of networking carried forward from the shared screen that we're looking at tonight over into the chat, and then into the expanded network provided by the chat itself. There was the I think there's an old, I mentioned this long time ago on my channel. There was a series of books. It was sort of like Nancy Drew or the Hardy Boys or whatever. And it was called The Three Investigators. And it was these three young kids who had a school bus buried in a trash pile in a junkyard. And they they traveled around the city solving mysteries or whatever. But when they wanted to figure out information, they had something called a ghost to ghost network, which was supposed to be like a pun on coast to coast. But the little kids would each call up one of their little kid friends, and then each one of those little kid friends would call two more. And before you knew it, the bad guys had been found because, such and such saw them after school or whatever. That idea of the ghost to ghost network and of networking beyond the set of relationships that you have on screen, if we take a look at a Lambda or a Prudentialist or Don or Academic Agent, they've got X number of people in their sphere that they can interact with that show up on their episodes or whatever. But then there's the whole sort of chat. And, some people have them in their Discord. Other people interact with them in other ways. Sometimes it's following on Twitter. But if you multiply each of us, not only by the set of other parties that we know that we interact with more directly and take into account the chat and the rest, I think you'd very quickly find that, we can reach out a bit further than many people assume at first.
And I think we should commend every step of increased engagement, and it always takes courage and it always takes effort. But to go from I'm watching to I'm occasionally commenting in live chat, that everybody who comments in live chat, I commend you for being a step more engaged than the people who are just watching, just listening. Joining a Discord, that's an extra step. Coming on a stream or starting your own YouTube channel, that's another step further. I think maybe having your real life name attached or having your camera on, these are all like steps of courage that mean that you're more effective, but obviously at greater risk. But it's something that tangibly means you're more involved, you take more responsibility, you're more culpable if things go wrong. These things all go together. But if you find that you're a capable person, you should feel also the weight of, do I have a responsibility to use this in a responsible way? Can I use the abilities that I have during my lifetime to make a difference for causes that I care about?
Well, and I think that goes back to the idea about the first risk takers. And there are people that we know in our circles that have been doxxed. There are people in our circles we know that have lost their jobs because of this. And I think and this is why, and we can talk about this after this conversation, or we can talk about it at another time in private.
Everyone's calling me a Fed. Sorry. now that I see that, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why people would say.
That's sort of that's another concern, right? And that's why there's so much.
I said that is because I've been considering de-anonymizing myself more. That's why I said it, rather than I'm trying to encourage other people to.
Here, let me go ahead and dox myself. For those of you who think my last name is, the branding here is inaccurate, my last name is Workman. All right. So I didn't step too far with Pleb. Basically right where I started. Not that that's new. Most of the internet knows my last name if they want to. But the risk is real. I won't kid you. But come on now. I think everybody here knows, whether you want to say it out loud, no risk, no reward, right?
Yeah.
And we have all been running around trying to find this no risk way to get things done, and it just simply doesn't exist, right?
And the other thing is that if you do put your name out there in front of everybody, there's nothing else they can take from you at that point.
Right,
they don't
exactly.
have anything. They can come and of course put you in the wood chipper, but there's nothing in terms of doxing and the rest. I'm sorry to cut you off, Don. You were going to
No, go ahead, man. Go.
Well, that's basically it. The only other thing is that I did see somebody in the chat saying that Lambda glows, and I wanted to point out that is the Holy Spirit.
Why, thank you.
That is a thing that I despise, right? And I will tell you how much at the end here. So there is an end point coming. All of this, everyone is a Fed thing. Okay, what if they are? Is that it? Is just 900% of people are Feds, and so we must all. The only person that is not a Fed is you. This is the thing. Blah blah blah. And I say this as a guy who knows factually right now that I am being investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation for being at January 6th. Right. So for all those of you who want to go, oh well, nothing happened to you. Well, it's happening. right? And it is happening right now. I am not in any way exaggerating or making this up. They're coming, and I know it. So when I say stand up and do something anyway, I mean it, right? It's not, oh, but you never have to deal with punitive crap. Oh, yes, I do, right? I am right now. So by all means, stand up and do it anyway. No, it's not always going to go well. Yes, I might end up in a DC jail for 6 months because that's how that's going. But you're going to have to anyway, right? What's the other option?
Yeah, the other thing with the Fed business, I am a great fan of saying that it is never, and I will say it again and again, and sear it into your brains. The question is never who is a snitch, asset, Fed, or spy. Never. The question is always who isn't, and you have to approach life that way. However, it doesn't mean stop. It just means there's actually a great freedom involved when you imagine that everybody is probably a Fed, like everybody, including half your friends, because then you can sort of look at the landscape like it probably is and understand that there are shades and all the rest. And meanwhile, keep pushing for what you're pushing, and it will remind you to do it as carefully as possible, both civilly and lawfully.
Yeah, and I mean, there's shades of gray as well, right? There's probably people around who are actual Feds. There's also people who will change allegiance and suddenly, start dobbing people in or whatever. There's probably people who are, yeah. So the point being that we should. I think there's a bunch of people who probably look in the mirror every day and look into their own eyes and go, "Are you a Fed?" They're so desperate to find Fedism inside everybody. But the truth is, the world works on trust, and you can never have perfect trust. You have to take risks. The zero risk has been a lot of the reason that the COVID stuff has gone out of hand, because people just aren't used to facing, I might be wrong, something might go bad for me. We have to take calculated risks. Don't be stupid, but you have to trust people. If you think that somebody is probably on your side, you might have to be vulnerable to them, and it may backfire. But if you refuse to take the risk, you're guaranteed to make absolutely no headway whatsoever.
No, and you're right. And in fact, for instance, one of the first things I think I've ever done with this channel is I met Don in person, and he and I went to go see a Kamala Harris rally somewhere in Fort Worth and watch shit hit the fan. And boy, was that a lot of fun to do. And I got to know him and some of his friends, and that's how you have to do it. And that's how you have to take that risk. But I think that one thing that we can do to mitigate that, and this is where I think we all have our different projects going on, and something I wanted to talk about and present maybe in February, is just, I think that there needs to be some sort of way to have a, slush fund dedicated in 3 main areas. 1, education. If we're going to start homeschooling our kids, we need to find a way to compensate that time. Secondly, if you own a small business and somehow it ends up getting like Kenosha and burned to the ground like we saw last year with that man crying on camera, I want to have money available for you all to rebuild that if necessary, because insurance doesn't cover everything. And then third, the final one that I have in mind is that if you get doxxed, you get canceled, you get arrested, you get, anything happen to you where you're beat up by Antifa, I want to cover your medical bills. I want to cover lawyers' fees. I want to make sure that we have a mechanism in place as an organization to ensure that we can take care of things. And all of that matters. And in fact, even I think Charlemagne and Semiogogue have seen my face. And when I'm in a better living situation, I will start doing things more on camera, because I do work with like the local officials where I live. I do talk to people. I know plenty of people that I want to actually have more integrated in this circle. And if that means that we have to do things and take that risk, so be it. But I think that if anything that we do going forward, that risk needs to be mitigated with our own kind of infrastructure. And that's what I'm working towards.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
I don't know. I don't think I know what you look like, but I mean, as you guys know, I normally, face cam before the streams actually start with people. After we've done a few streams to like build trust, I do tend to do that in order to, it's like you kind of have to extend the olive branch of trust. Like you're never going to actually get anywhere if someone doesn't actually make a move to de-anonymize and become more of an actual person. So Yeah, I think it's actually important. And of course, I'll go to. I'm planning on going. I actually need to respond to an email on that. But the thing in Nashville coming up in February. We'll see how that goes. And I was at the Million MAGA marches, obviously. So we do have to get used to de-anonymizing. I think there's a window of usefulness closing around anonymity anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Exactly.
saying like all of the followers need to be doing that, right? But like,
Well,
especially the peoples with a following are going to have to do that. They take that step sooner or later, because we're the ones organizing things.
Think about the limitations that are put upon you by being anonymous, and then think about the risk that it poses to you in real life if you're not. And for different people, those will weigh differently. So I think there will always be a place for the vast majority of people to be anonymous. It probably makes sense for most people that it's not worth it. The risk reward doesn't add up. So I totally think it's valid for people to be anonymous. I think that what I'm not calling for is like mass, like everybody become de-anonymized. All I'm saying is it's been on my mind that I might be switching away from Lambda to my actual name, and I was kind of
that's
playing
bold,
some of the
though,
thinking in
man.
my head.
That's bold in the UK, because I have done it here. I mean, I open every stream here, and I'll turn my little camera back on again. I open every stream with my full name.
Yes,
but I am not sure I would do that in the United Kingdom.
Interesting.
That's just.
Yeah,
The fact that you do it was one
of
of the things that was making me wonder about it. Actually, I was interested that you made that choice, and I was wondering if I should start my streams the same way as I'm Baba from Lambda, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't know, man.
I
United
also
Kingdom.
But like, I'm ready for, like, with some of the stuff that I see on the horizon in the UK, I'm kind of like, I'm ready for going to jail or whatever over these things. Like, I kind of want to be counted. So
Based.
Indeed.
but civilly and lawfully and obviously try to stay out of jail. That's the whole point, because someone who
I'd
is in
much
jail
rather
becomes...
that the country takes a different path, of course.
Sure. And at the same time, also, if you're an idiot, and I just want to say that because there's always going to be a certain percentage, I'm sure it's very, very low on Prudentialist's stream, of course, but there's always going to be a certain percentage of people who are fucking morons. And so they must understand that simply going to jail for the sake of going to jail turns you into a sink for resources, a waste of time, somebody that has to be dragged back out of the hole. Conduct yourself as an adult and try to be productive, constructive, and keep your ass out of a sling. But that said, yeah, I'm totally for it. Let's go ahead and find out the true mighty man that is Lambda.
What the hell's his name? Nazi pug guy, Dankula, right?
Count Dankula.
So
Nazi's not the accepted term anymore. The preferred pronoun is Jewish questioning person.
So the one with the JQ dog, if you're going to jail because of something like that, right? If you're going to jail for having pissed off the regime as a whole, for having done something innocuous, that's not the worst thing in the world. And if you don't believe me, look at guy who went from 500 subscriber YouTube channel to like 100 grand in the span of a year, right? His reach is now substantially higher. On the other hand, if you're going around just beating people for the sake of beating people, chances are pretty good no one is going to care about you in about 5 minutes, and nor should they.
Yeah, I think if you can be strategic about it, if you can pick the right hill to die on, as it were, you can make a difference. You can amplify your actions if you do it correct. If you do it, correctly.
Indeed. I remain terrible with names. Rules for radicals. Alinsky, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there says, going to jail is important for radicals. And people read that as like, all right, let's go shank a bitch. Yeah, nobody meant that. But if you go to a protest and you go to jail for the weekend, right? You're locked up in what amounts to the drunk tank. Then when you get out, you get to say, "Hey, I didn't do anything, and they threw me in a can for the weekend," right? And people get pissed off about that. You have to be willing to take a little bit on the chin in that fashion, but don't don't Rittenhouse the entire left just because you feel like it.
That's gonna stay as a verb now. I know it.
It should.
But no, I think the biggest takeaway is that it has been this discussion has been about energizing oneself and moving towards a positive direction. And, people will always say like, oh, you're always trying to gatekeep or you're always doing this purity spiral. And we see this all the time when like AA is dealing with like those penner people or his own personal reply guys of that project. And let's just pause for a moment and realize everyone in this group here has interacted in that nexus to some degree. We all have various faiths. We all have various backgrounds in our ideology. Some of us are, middle management people. Some of us are programmers. Some of us are tradesmen. Some of us do our own thing. Some of us are self-employed artists, etc. We all have different ideas. We all have disagreements on issues, and that's perfectly fine. And like we said earlier, you can do that in private with those disagreements. But I think at this point in time, this energy that we've discussed here and the fact that we have a win that shouldn't be a pressure release valve tells us that we know exactly what to happen next. And that is moving in this positive direction, even if it's incrementally. Having the necessary infrastructure to do it, having resources available, interacting with the own chat, like Lambda was saying, about finding people that are willing to step up, like that nice gentleman Jimmy did with the super chat. I think what comes forward from here is not only do we celebrate this win, but unlike every time that the right wins an election or every time that we do get, someone with a slight win in a case or, they get a business set up, you have to take it the next step further. And I'm fired up for that, and I'm ready for that, and that's something that I've been ready to do because every time I go to like a local party meeting, you hear it time and time and time again where they're so low energy. They're like, well, I don't have anything to do. I just go up here or I go to the ballot box and I show up to an occasional rally or something. And it's incredibly frustrating because there are smart people there that own their own businesses, that employ their own people, and that's what they feel like that's the total extent of what they can do. And the reason why I like this circle is because there are people that have done things, are still doing things, and can do things well enough on their own and coordinate with others that isn't just, oh, I'm going to go to a rally. Oh, I'm going to go vote through the ballot box. That's all I'm going to do. You have to realize, and like AA has been saying in the chat for a good chunk of the stream, is that we are an incredibly small minority. And regardless of your faith or background, I mean, like Jesus Christ started with 12 people. And look at where we are now. That to me is what tells me everything that we need to do forward is that even if it starts with a small network of tens, like AA calls it, or whatever it may be, whether you're in the States, the UK, elsewhere, I have people that, give me money on Subscribestar from Japan and Poland and the UK. There's a network out there for us to communicate and do things. And I think this is the energy that needs to be taken forward from here on out. Because as we saw last November, as we've seen throughout all of the rioting last summer, and as we have seen throughout everything right in front of us, you're not going to be saved by normies. You're not going to be saved by the average Joe. And the wisdom of crowds oftentimes is retarded. So this is where the onus is on us now.
It might be a good point at which to raise the question of how we can cooperate with each other internationally. And to a certain extent, that is already happening. Prude just talked about the way in which he gets financial support from viewers from different countries. And of course, for me, I'm in a situation where basically my income has been torpedoed by the machinations of the koofsters, and at the same time, you not to cry, oh, woe is me, because everyone here knows about this. Everyone, probably the majority of the people in the chat also, but you end up getting, pushed off to the margins as someone who has views or understandings that are outside the permissible window of sentiment. And simply being able to speak to other people around the world who aren't fucking idiots, that's a great fucking breath of fresh air, allow me to tell you. Simply being able to speak to people who aren't fools is an enormous boost. It's an enormous amount of wind in the sails because, when you're off on your own, there you go. And so I think it's worthwhile. This might be getting a little far far afield, Prude, for the stream, but it does seem to me as though it's worthwhile considering how we can help each other in our respective countries. I know one thing I do, just very quickly, is that I go over the top when I bitch about things going on in Britain, because I'm not there. It's not my country. And I probably sound like a fool to people who know that it's not my country, but I'll come in all the time because people will be talking about how Priti Patel is doing her business of nothing. And they're always like, oh, they're doing nothing. You know, we got to get them to do something. And I'm like, don't you fuckers understand that they are doing something? By not acting, they ensure that the stream of migration continues, and they can just sort of throw up their hands and go, oh, gosh, I just don't know what happened. And so that's what I do. I look to a country where I'm not likely to have someone come to make an inquiry and a statement, you know, where the police arrive at your door for a non-criminal incident that they must record. Right. I'm not there, so I can say those things for them. There are probably a number of other things like that others have thought of that we could do to support each other.
So there's a relatively important thing in there, and I once spontaneously gave a speech, that got turned into a video passed around called "You Are Not Alone," and I don't think most of us understand how important that is, right?
You want to link it? I'll play it.
Yeah. But while I'm getting that, this stream, for example, is probably one of the more vindicating, I guess might be the right words, things that I've been around in quite some time. I absolutely appreciate nearly every single thing that's been said here. I have heard things come from people who are not me that I've been saying for years, and I don't mean that in some self-falating way, but rather that, holy shit, things might happen. We might get up and do some shit. And there have been whole months where it's like, all right, I'm a guy with 2 chains on my back trying to pull a whole fucking 5,000 pound sled, and it's not going anywhere, and it's not going anywhere fast. And there has been a lot of discussion here in my house that is, maybe I should just quit doing what I'm doing and go try and be more circuitous about this. And I gotta say, nothing in the world has gotten me off of that topic until this stream today, right now, for I don't even know how long. So thank you, first of all.
Well, we'll play this, and then I want to bring it back to Rittenhouse, because there's a few things that from this conversation I think applies there. But for those who have not seen this video, it's on Don's channel. One of the first things I saw from him, and besides his talks with so many other wonderful people. But here we go.
You're not alone. You have brothers and sisters in every country on this planet. And we had better get together and act like it from this point forward. We had better start looking out for each other in the exact same way that the left is getting together to destroy us. And we need to be here for each other in that exact same way that they are so vicious. We need to be here for each other just as much, backing each other just as much, there for each other when you feel like no one is there to pick up a phone when your brother is in trouble. Because make no mistake, that's where the left is at, and they will come for you. Their way of taking out feeling bad is hurting you, and you can go out there and not hurt people, not cause destruction. Just look out for each other. Be it so much as helping a brother change a tire, get to a job interview, split a meal if that's what you gotta do. And this is not just local, this is global. There are millions of us, and if we got together and fought this the way that they are fighting us, we will win.
So yeah, And I think that brings us a really good way to wrap this back to Rittenhouse, because one of the biggest things that I've noticed in our conversation, and we've seen this before in these circles, has been the idea of psychic profit, or the idea of a psychic victory. Because the biggest thing that I think every single one of us has observed, both in these, videos and what we see on the news and the media and on Twitter, anywhere we go, even day to day, is that they want you atomized. C.S. Lewis talks about the abolition of man. In 2021, it is about the atomization of man. They want you alone. They do not want you talking to anybody. They want you to feel like you are the only person that shares this opinion. And I think that by all of us having our own projects, all of us talking despite our disagreements, that has to happen. And that even if we don't agree 100%, fine. We know what the bigger target is. We know what the end goal is. And we can have that debate in private, and we can have that debate after we win. And this is why I think when we take a look at, Kyle walking free today, not guilty on all 4 counts, you've seen the celebration on Twitter. You saw everybody go nuts. I posted an ungodly amount of memes today, and I'm sure everyone else has too. Kyle practiced excellent marksmanship with who he was dealing with in self-defense. I think
that one was legit bad, by the way.
And so with all that in mind, I think when bringing it back to Kyle and bringing in the fact that this gentleman has walked free is that how many other young men, how many other people our age, whether you're 25 or you're 45 or 50, doesn't matter, how many people aren't walking free tonight? How many people are walking the street in an American or a British city feeling completely unsafe in their own country and in their own homes? That is why we need to continue this sort of direction, continue this sort of discussion, because we got lucky that this was on camera, and we got lucky that the Ahmaud Arbery case is on camera, because we are seeing how bad things are. And again, like Don said, you're not alone.
I don't know, man. That was pretty hard. That sounds like good ending to me.
Well, then, I think we'll get to the super chats then, because there were quite a few, and thank you so much, because this stream is sure as hell not getting monetized. So let's get and also, gentlemen, for those of you who all donated, thank you, because none of this money that I ever get in super chats or subscribe star donations, I'll make it very clear right now, it doesn't go in my pocket. I don't keep it in a savings account in a Scrooge McDucky involved. It goes to pay for my anti-rejection medication, because I got a kidney transplant 5 months ago.
Pirate organs from North Korea.
Absolutely, right. Although mine was a small child.
You know why, by the way, he has anti-rejection medications? Because he sold his kidneys and bought pleb merch.
There'll be a moment for everyone to plug in a second, but I'll get started from the top here. Good Lord, where do we start? Okay, so from the very top, Lane for $5 US. Thanks so much from the bottom of my heart. It's Friday. The autumn weather is beautiful, and Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent. I treasure these rare white-pilling days. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Monothalo says, under ideal circumstances, Rittenhouse would be tutored by to be a leader, the best education money could buy, traveling the country to build loyalties, etc. And that kind of reminds me of like John Quincy Adams, because he like got yeeted by his dad at like age 12 when he was in France during the revolution. He's like, all right, you're going to go learn Russian, you're going to go learn Latin, you're going to go learn German, you're going to learn how to lead this country when you're old enough. And I think we need to go back to that, to be perfectly honest with you. Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker says, for $5 US, thank you so much. I really hope he enters politics. To be honest with you, I really hope that he lives a nice, quiet life somewhere where no one will bother him, because he's been through enough hell already, and he's only 18. Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker again for $5 US. The best part about this is the irreparable damage to the MSN monolithic authority. I mean, trust in the media has been going down for quite some time, but maybe this will definitely help make it even lower. Because the last I saw it was like, what, only 40% of us don't trust the media. I think that number needs to be higher. Zero Kev for $4.99 says, Binger almost made me Fed post when he brought up the "bruh, I'm just trying to be famous" in the closing arguments. And that was in the bio of his TikTok account, which was called 4 Doors, More Whores. And I think that is excellent. That should be a meme, and that should be on a mug somewhere. Skelly Priest says, for $5 US, let's not get too excited. The corporate machine is just going to step up the attacks. Yes. And we've already seen this already, and I'll put some images up of that just in a second about how bad it's gotten. Avaloc for Brazil, $2. The judge knew he was holding back in regards to, I believe, the compression and the things like that. He might have known, and I know that we talked about that on stream without even mentioning the super chat. Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker again for $2. If this was Iraq, Kyle would have earned a medal. Well, Don? Yeah?
Yes. Yes. Annually, I read Medal of Honor citations for Memorial Day. And there are Medal of Honor citations that are not as badass, not as accurate and on point as what Kyle Rittenhouse did. Just factually. They're not. Now, there are some that are substantially more badass, but there are plenty that are not. So, for everybody out there, I don't know if he's a hero, go fuck yourself. We pinned the highest medal this nation has on combat vets for doing sometimes less than he did.
Stone Hat for £5 sterling says, Big Iron intensifies. And there is a parody song I'm sure everyone has found out about Big Iron from Marty Robbins about Kenosha and what he's done. So go look that one up. John Gordon says for $4.99, I started getting teary-eyed after the not guilty verdict started. I lost it when Kyle cried at the end. I haven't saw blacked out for a while. I know AA said that he cried as well multiple times, so you're not alone. I definitely
almost as good as pouring down the drinks and offering up wassails from the freshly gilded skull of your fallen enemy.
Almost.
Amen. Zero Kev for $1.99 says massive L for Anarcho-Tyranny. Yeah, I mean that's one of the bigger takeaways here is that at least for right now, self-defense is still a legal thing, and we should probably treasure that for as long as we have it here in the United States. Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker again, and he's in here multiple times. I seriously question how much money he has.
Deeply
for $5,
subversive.
I know, deeply subversive, working for Blair. $5 US, he says, don't forget Kyle's friend is still getting charged for the gun he legally had. Yeah, like we had said earlier, this isn't over yet, and we shouldn't imagine that it's over. The doll face for £2 says, so to speak. I think that's in relation to our quasi-fed posting earlier. The doll huck for 50 US. I'm going to try very hard not to get in trouble by reading this. On the question of removal, it is not a problem in the world that cannot be solved with a proper application of blank, and I'm going to leave it at that, and also just add hypothetically, legally, and lawfully. And thank you so much for the $50 US. Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker again, deeply subversive. I'm sure Semiogogue can tell you about Turkey's mostly peaceful removal of several groups to foreign countries. I'm sure that he could.
No comment.
Brian for $5 US. Based lawyer here. Me and my coworkers were toasting Kyle this afternoon over some 100 proof Rittenhouse rye. Well, Brian, if you've been listening to this stream and this conversation, find us through our various emails and Twitter accounts. We would love to get a hold of you.
Become a part of the network of Lawyer 10s, the Praetorian Chads that make the resurrection of our respective countries possible. Do it now.
See, I was just going to roll in the do it for you.
Polish ambassador for 25. He says, not to black pill, but it's not a victory. It's the system's built-in pressure valve, just like red team, blue team are. I'm happy for the kid, though. And, I mean, yeah, oftentimes these things do get looked like as a pressure release valve. We kind of talked about that already. We shouldn't treat it as this. Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker, again, despite his deeply subversiveness, I think he's donated to virtually everybody on this stream in some form or fashion. He says, the libtard having a seizure at the courthouse was the CIA activating stuff in her signals. They literally shut it down. Oy vey. Did you all see that? The lady who was screaming at America?
Yeah, and I wasn't buying it. The way she fell to the ground in the same way that screaming woman did after the Trump election, she just shrieked of being a plant.
I enjoyed Auron's description of it as emotional sepulcher.
Death by Zero Kev for $4.99 says, why progressives will never apologize. Anyone can believe in the truth. To believe in nonsense is an unforgivable demonstration of loyalty. From Mencius Moldbug and Unqualified Reservations. Yeah, I mean, and people do believe in nonsense. We talk about the left can't meme thing, and it's a disassociation of reality for us, but at the same time, that disassociation has become HR policy, language policy, all sorts of things. So it's things to keep in mind. Death by Cognitive Dissonance for $5 US says, Platinum tier panel. Thank you for hosting, Prude. Thank you to everyone else for volunteering your time. Today was a good day for our side. Well, thank you all, gentlemen, for hopping on. This was sort of last minute, but I knew that we needed a reaction and discussion stream.
Yes, it was very good.
More than
Dolph,
happy to be here.
Oh, well, I like all of you guys, so by all means, thank you for coming on. Dollface for £2 sterling says, Binger is our word. You can say binga, though, with an A. Marty for... Oh, go ahead.
Is that what we need to do right now, is start making the Binger with a hard R memes?
Hard
Yes.
R. My heart is hard. Binger.
Binger with a hard R. Uncle Tom, with a Thomas Carlyle profile picture for $5 Canadian, says, libel laws need to change. If we can rewrite the laws to make it easier to sue media outlets for liar, it would be open season on those fellow whites. I mean, that was one of the things that Trump campaigned on, and then nothing happened from it. I would love for us to pick up that in some form or fashion, even if it's local. Oropost for $20 US. Thanks so much, man. I greatly appreciate it. Overtly stand by your principles. The regime has become noticeably unpopular day by day, and all you have to do is reject the pause. Never let your principles buckle under fear. Mean what you say and make it heard.
Just sorry to go back one super chat.
Oh, sure. Go for it.
On the subject of libel laws, I've been wondering recently whether actually the opposite is the case. The existence of libel laws give normal people the impression that they can trust the media. So actually, we would be better off if they got rid of the libel laws, and it therefore became common knowledge that you can't trust anything you read.
It would either need to be that, or the media would have to be held to the same standard as everybody else, right?
Because given, is that likely? Has there ever been a situation in history where we trust the elite not to control the distribution of ideas?
Oh well, look, by all means, they're going to keep doing what they're doing, right? But I can't imagine how many times I have heard really dumb shit from people like, well, Project Veritas has been sued 47 billion times because they lied. And like, these people went to jail because they did bad things. And as soon as they start to get recognized as a media outlet, then all that sort of thing goes away. But the flip side of that is, and CNN doesn't get sued, even though CNN gets sued, right? But if the list of lawsuits for every leftist media outlet was longer than the Bible, that would be helpful, right? Just, okay, here's the 28 billion, like every time they open their mouth, they get sued, right? Maybe you can't trust them.
While the laws exist, I'm not saying don't go after the leftist outlets, of course, but this is a bit like campaigning for harder libel laws seems like giving our enemies a bigger gun. That's just was my feeling. So
I think in both cases, what everybody's talking about there is harder libel laws are probably a misnomer, right? There's a thing called the actual malice standard as applied to the media, and what it means is you have to prove that they lied knowingly and that they were doing it expressly to hurt you. And once you are in any way a public figure, and by the way, the whatever that kid's name was, with the Indian and wampum, and he smiled, Sandman, right? CNN went into court and argued he's a public figure, to which, thank God, the judge went, "You made him a public figure, jackass. You can't do that." Right? Because once you're in the public figure standard, you're pretty much, it doesn't matter what anybody says about you. It doesn't matter what you did, what the truth is. The news can basically say whatever they want. And that is a combination of it being the news and you being a public figure. So when Trump said open up the libel laws, what he meant is make the media actually responsible for what they say ever, because right now they're not.
Yeah, there are two angles on that. One of them is the old thing of the judgment of Cambyses, which I did a clip on. Basically, the old standard, as we hear the story in Herodotus, was that a judge was conducting his court in ways that were just as crooked as a dog's hind leg, utterly corrupt. And so Cambyses came and had the judge skinned alive, and his flayed skin was placed on the seat that the judge had to sit on, the replacement judge, who was supposed to be just, who was put in. They made sure that each day he went into court, he was sitting on the skin of the flayed former judge in order to understand that his verdicts must be just. And that was once, it's actually one of the first seals. I think the Chancery of Virginia had the judgment of Cambyses shown on the seal for the court. That is something that we must remember. The other thing I think that is very worthwhile for us to remember is the old story from the Odyssey, where Odysseus comes home and he's in his house, and of course the suitors have come in, the opportunistic migrants have come in, and Penelope's trying to keep him at a distance, claiming she has to finish her weaving, and they all want to take over Odysseus's property in Ithaca, and they're drinking him out of house and home, eating all his food, getting drunk, smashing things, having their way with the house. And Odysseus is there in disguise. And this is before he takes them all down with the great bow, which is another great meme I put together where it says it's time to go home. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, with Odysseus with his bow. But anyway, this scumbag beggar who has come into the house and is hanging out, his name is Eros. And he's just a blowhard fuckstick. And he's just making all kinds of noise. And Odysseus is like, no, we don't have to get into this fight. There's enough food here that both of us as beggars can enjoy. And Eros keeps running his mouth. And so Athena fills Odysseus with strength, and he strikes this blowhard in the face, shattering his teeth and breaking his jaw and causing him to cough up a fountain of blood. And then Odysseus just drags him outside and then goes back in. And so I think those two things are things that we should bear in mind when it comes to all the lies that are being told about us collectively and individually in many cases, is both how Odysseus deals with Eros and the importance of the judgment of Cambyses.
Wow.
A
Great
much more
story.
based sword of Damocles.
The original Fed posters.
Yes, civilly and lawfully, ladies and gentlemen.
Civilly and lawfully. Peacefully, in the real sense of the term. But I'll just reread Oropos again because we got sidetracked here. It says, overtly stand by your principles. The regime has become noticeably unpopular day by day, and all you have to do is reject the pause. Never let your principles buckle under fear. Mean what you say and make it heard. And Oropos is one of those up-and-comer guys that I think that people should pay more attention to. He works in the trades. He has a pretty good understanding of economics. He's got his own website and things going. I've interviewed with him, and he's interviewed with Oren. So for Radlib and Turnip, when you guys do watch this VOD, I would recommend getting a hold of him and talking with him. He's a good guy.
Sten.
Jimmy Thomas for $10 Canadian. We put this up earlier, but he says he's a lawyer, and if anyone is in trouble due to your beliefs, DM him, and I can give you guys some free initial pointers. And yeah, as Don said, and as I said earlier, Jimmy's a great guy. By all means, he's on Twitter, and he put his email in the chat. So just check on the replay when we talked about that. But yeah, he's a good guy. Go find him on Twitter.
No, on the comment that the regime is becoming less popular, have you heard of this thing called the shepherd tone? It's a thing that you can do with music and sound effects, right? I think it was used in the Batman movies, where one of the vehicles sounded like the pitch as it drove was always increasing. You can just make this sound by as the sound rises up off the top of the human hearing range, another one comes in at the bottom, and you get all of these staggered increasing tones, and it gives you the impression that this thing is constantly going up. Look it up if you've never heard of the shepherd tone. It's really interesting. Anyway, I think sometimes these effects work a bit like that. So as people around you become more aware of what's going on, they maybe lose a bit of faith in the structures that they had a childish belief in, but they're also getting older, and then there's new young people who are wide-eyed and innocent and step out into the morning sun with their full faith in the structures that surround them. So we have to be careful not to, sorry, that was a weird analogy. All I'm saying is, if people don't lose faith in the regime quickly enough, nothing ends up happening.
No, I mean, it's a good point. I didn't know about Shepherd Tone, so now I'm gonna have to look that up now. And
It's pretty
no,
cool.
you always learn something. So no, it's good. I'll don't worry. Matthew Ivy for $5 US. Thank you so much. Theoretically, how do you go about hiding the evidence of your actions when you decide? No, it's a theoretical. What about no? I'm not Matthew Ivy. Let's not peacefully and lawfully. That's why we have base lawyers. Matthew Ivy, Fed poster. But thank you for the $5 US. Mirake says $5 US. So a large enough group of basic insurance pool contract is super simple. Well, that's what I would like to do. And in my conversations with both some software developers and people that are more familiar with, say, things like Urbit, I wouldn't mind doing it in a way that's not as hard to get a hold of, whether that's through crypto or the fact that we're going to have issues with that $600 thing with the IRS. So it's still a conversation that I'm working with, and maybe having a base lawyer on would help us find out ways to deal with that. So more to come there. Caleb R for $10 US. He says, I 100% agree with the discussion on the stream. Please, gentlemen, if we have an informal network, formalize it. Build a cohesive organization. No more atomized individuals. We need something to rally to. And I think that you'll find out, Caleb, that's kind of what we're going to do behind the scenes and also in February. Zach, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, just behind the scenes, we're moving in this direction, and so I think you'll see more and more coordination, and organically out of that will come actual formalized organizations.
Yeah, is it too early to say anything further about this event?
Well, it's not my event,
you know what I mean?
I don't know what to say other than that it's going to be happening.
Be aware, there's an event coming.
Something is happening. Get excited.
It's in February. Trust the plan. Zachary Bolduck for $10 Canadian says, you are not alone. And that's damn right. You're not alone. We're all here. And if you just want to talk to somebody, again, that's what this chat is for. That's what we're here for. You're not alone. Crown Target for $20 US. Thank you so much. This is great. Circling the wagons, so to speak. A great think tank. Autists unite. As Don said it perfectly, there is no unmatched force than internet autism all channeled together. Sam153 for... Yeah, it is so. For $10 Canadian, he says, not to be a downer, but will the Empire strike back with federal charges? There's rumors about it, but Joe Biden's first initial statement says that we must respect the law of the jury's decision. I think they might be taking the L here, so maybe not. I don't think so.
Mostly what I have gotten on this front is Nadler opening his fucking cock holster and shit spewing out of that everywhere. Nadler doesn't matter, right? And make no mistake, I don't think that there's anything particularly good for them to go after him for. I mean, directly related to this. And if they went after him for something else, for once, we might have prosecutorial misconduct, whatever the thing is, malicious prosecution, that for once someone could actually file. You know, if Rittenhouse goes across a state line with a lizard or something and they try and prosecute him for that, it's going to be, what are you doing investigating this kid, right? How did you even come to this? And for once, we might actually be able to go after the people that are generally untouchable.
Well, you're absolutely right. Cam Miles for $5 says for US, he says for the cause. And I said, thank you. We appreciate it. And again, when my needs and medication stuff is taken care of, the donations here from that will probably go towards these projects. So this money is not something I keep in my pocket. I do have a day job, so I'm not too worried. Jedi Knight Anakin Cringewalker for $10 US. He says, the best part was Huber's GF smiling at the verdict, looking straight at the camera, realizing she was being recorded, and then suddenly changed to crying. Get her number, big man. You stole more than his life.
Yeah, he already did, actually, if you check my recent retweets.
Oh, let me go do that, because...
Did he?
Apparently.
Yeah, not only did he eliminate Huber, he cucked him as well.
Oh my gosh,
telephone number in the courtroom, right?
Yeah, open image in new tab. Let me go share screen real quick because that's insane.
Yeah, he better be
Share-
careful because that just stinks of a trap.
It sure
Seriously.
Yes.
does. So yeah, here we go. Girlfriend, yeah, Hannah Giddings, 25, looking like something out of a Negative XP album. And let's see here. It says, was leaving the courtroom upon question. She confirmed it did contain her phone number. So yeah, apparently, yeah. Said if he ever needed someone to talk to, I would be down for that. I think about the time we should come together and heal. Handing a small note that contained her phone number.
Yeah, if he calls her at this point, he's an idiot.
Oh yeah,
As a
definitely.
Yeah.
win, and don't go anywhere near. She just look at her. She looks like stay away brand.
Yes.
She
I
does.
mean, she was what?
She looks like.
she's Huber's old girlfriend. I mean, come on.
You know what she looks like? She looks like discount Anita Sarkeesian.
with without the weight.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Give her
something straight
time.
out of.
Did you
Negative
did you
XP
miss a
album.
super chat?
Well, we still have plenty coming in,
Okay.
so unfortunately, not that it's unfortunate, but like I'm sure people want to have
We
them
need-
enjoy their night.
We need to keep
Yeah,
the
that's-
number of these super chats under one.
That's how Prude says it means so much. Unfortunately, translates as it means so much.
It does. It means so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. But no, I try my. I usually just pull the in the arms of the angel sympathy card when it comes to shilling. Because it's just like, hey guys, like, did you know? But everyone does know. I say it every stream. But continuing on. Okay. Bolero for $4.99. He says, God is not on the side of the big battalions, but on the side of those who shoot the best, from Voltaire. And I think that we definitely have a better aim and something better in mind than those out there in the fake news and the faggy media. So I think we're okay. Let's see here. Hermit says for $5 US, kind of off topic, but T-Rex Arms is one of the only firearms brands that is socially conservative and seems to be a very good ally of the gun community, just for like the NRX boys and such. I was not aware. Then again, it's been very hard for me to find ammunition anywhere. But Semiogogue has always provided a very good piece of advice. You can have a right-wing channel or you can have a gun channel. You cannot have both on the same place. So always keep that in mind.
Phoenix makes ammo and are overtly political in all the right ways. Came out with the Rittenhouse thing and we're like, yep, nope, self-defense, deal with it, suck it up, Buttercup, and if he wants Phoenix ammo, it's free. So...
Or are these the same guys that on their website had is Kyle Rittenhouse innocent, yes or no? And that was the only way to get a hold of their products.
Yeah, and then if you voted for Joe Biden, it would kick you out of the site and all kinds of shit.
Is that company really called T-Rex Arms? Don't T-Rexes famously have small, pointless arms?
Pretty sure that's the fun.
That's the pun.
It's
Okay.
small arms. Yeah, that makes sense.
Wherein
Nice.
Lambda reveals his autism is still.
right.
I thought everyone knew that.
Yeah.
Do you guys
Yeah.
not know that? I know a ton of dinosaur facts.
So the next time you're on Cigar Stream or UO, can we just get dinosaur facts in between super chats?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We should all just host Charlemagne and just talk about dinosaurs for hours.
Here's my other T-Rex fact. They didn't have feathers. I'm shocked
I'm waiting
as well.
for Charlie to fact check him.
No, he's right. It's amazing how gay scientists have been trying to make dinosaurs. Like, it's pure propaganda. Although a lot of dinosaurs that you think exist actually didn't, but we don't need to get into that. But yeah, science people aren't actually very good at assembling bones together.
I can't
Can we
believe
have
you
a
guys
deep
have gone.
lore on dinosaurs? That would be great.
I
Hey,
can't
if you're in the
believe
chat, I want a deepest lore on dinosaurs with Charlie.
Dinosaurs are not based, by the way, just for the record. Dinosaurs are very, very gay, whether they have feathers or not. But you know what would be very cool? I think we need to produce our own gun channel basically set up a burner account and have a gun channel on YouTube, but it's all the political people, but you don't say your names on it, because I really do feel in my life as though I have been separated from a source of great joy, which would be having a YouTube gun channel. And yet I can't, because now I've got one that's political. And just imagine.
We could all just cycle the first letter of our handles round. So you could be like Semiogogue, Lambda.
Semiogogue. And you could be Cramda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or what was that name that John D came up with he came up with the icon. What was the final name for the merging of the various so-called NRX boy voices?
Oh God, we just settled for a question mark on that stream because all the ones we tried didn't slip off the tongue very well.
So can we roll back for a minute, because the wife, ever helpful, has posted in chat. Their Twitter is currently Phoenix 4 doors more horse ammunition.
4 doors more horse should be a discount code on Academic Agency next time he does a sale.
AA also says he knows a lot about dinosaurs, so he's actually he's open
awesome.
to it. So
yeah,
better.
I saw he loved dinosaurs as a kid, so did I. Obviously, there's a correlation here between baseness or something like that.
No.
Velociraptors are actually really tiny, by the way.
Yeah, I hear they're the size of, or supposed to be the size of the things in the later movies that are like the size of a chicken.
Not quite that small, but closer to that, yeah. In terms of like gun channel stuff, once I move, I was planning on building a gun range, so there'd be plenty of space for cool content there.
And I said this in a group chat on Twitter that I am an avid muzzleloader enthusiast, and I've bought kits to do just pretty much a bunch of Revolutionary War percussion and flintlock rifles. So yeah, that would be a lot of fun to do.
I guess this is a good time to advertise. Then I am literally right now digging out a 450-yard range in my backyard.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
So by all means, I know, Lambda, this is probably going to be a little bit difficult for you, but for the rest of you, I think the rest of you know where I live. Just come on down. We'll shoot shit. I don't mind.
Yeah, and I want to get Academic Agent out. Can you imagine getting him out to like fire all kinds of weapons? And,
is he coming to the event? Because I will find a range.
I think he is. I certainly hope he is, because I was interested in it based on that fact. Not to speak ill of the people who are arranging it, but that's the primary draw. I mean, come on, you got to have the talent, right?
Is it possible to get to America if you haven't been vaccinated at the moment?
Good question.
Mr.
Patriarch would know. Go message him on Twitter. He would know. He's done it recently.
Depending on the country that you leave from, in case they have certain requirements, I don't know. The last I checked, you could get in with a negative test.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Look, Academic Agent is saying he might not even come. What a dirtbag! Oh my God! It's like somebody just ripped the spine right out of him. It's a fucking traitor.
What a truck!
Oh my God!
And we were going to take you to a range. Oh.
What are the rules or laws, I should say, about bringing firearms across state lines? Is that any problem? Because I could definitely.
No.
No, there shouldn't be.
Despite all the Rittenhouse bullshit, I don't go anywhere anymore that I can't carry, which is why you don't see me in D.C. as much anymore.
Yeah, well, I guess I mean, like, so in my state, your car is basically considered an extension of your house, and I know some states have different laws about what you can just have. So I'm driving through multiple states. Anyway, I could bring stuff to the meetup if we actually wanted to do a range thing.
Yeah.
Crossing state lines with firearms is no big deal, provided they're, legal in the state you're originating from and all that kind of thing. I mean, unless you're driving through Maryland, in which case you're dealing with something very, very different and very, very evil. But what you have to be more concerned about is that I believe the event is taking place in a state park. And so I was just looking at Tennessee laws on that. You're fine if you have a concealed carry permit and you're not getting up to any kind of nonsense. Obviously, you have to behave lawfully, and you can also lawfully have a firearm. You can't have a firearm, even if it's a lawful one, if you start behaving like a fool. But yeah, you should be able to treat your vehicle as though it's an extension of your personal space. And if you have a concealed carry permit, and obviously everyone should have one, then especially if there's firearm reciprocity, you're not going to have any trouble. But it just, leaving all that aside, I think it would be great fun to get AA out shooting. I think you could get just magnificent footage of him freaking out, shooting firearms on a range somewhere in the United States. You know,
I would kill for that footage. That'd be so much fun.
Surely he's been to a range before, right?
All right. So I've got a slightly better idea. What we should do is we should find someone in the general vicinity that has enough property we can go shoot on it. So there's no gay FUD range rules, and we take
there's going to be based people in Nashville. We'll be fine.
So one thing that's interesting is, you know, based on the range sizes you've been mentioning, like my friends were kind of seeming that were when I said I wanted to build a 300-yard range, they were like, "Oh, that seems kind of large," but I'm like, that's kind of like minimum for like rifle shooting.
Well, if you're going out west, yeah, but I mean, you'd be fine with a brush gun on the East Coast. I mean, you're not going to make many shots beyond like 100 yards, but yeah, it'd be nice, ideally, to have a 500-yard range. And if you're moving out west anyway, you know, that would make sense for you. But I don't know if we could even get a clean line of sight 500 yards in most areas of the East Coast.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
All right. Well, continuing on after T-Rex arms, Winter Phoenix Forest Kieran for $5 US says, "Good won over evil for once," and yes, it did, and it was nice to have a win under our belts for once. The scoreboard is totally lopsided, but hey, we'll take what we can get. Swickles for $5 US says, "The beauty of this is that you can say the word hero and everyone knows exactly who you're talking about."
Yes.
Yep. Coney, current year, in parentheses, for $5, Sterling says, "Big win. Salt overload is unreal. Leftists are getting black-pilled is chef's kiss. The fact that it even went to trial is a travesty. Have a good evening." Well, you have a good evening as well.
Yeah,
well, that's
the DA's fault.
I can't believe we didn't talk about. There are a bunch of people who are really upset right now. Well, yes, he won, but it never should have went to trial. Okay, well, do you think for 1 minute the left is going to stop attacking you? Because if that's your standard, you're never going to win, and you might as well just give up now, because these people are bitter, terrible, horrible people, and they hate you. Of course they're going to attack you. The question is whether or not you win when they attack you.
And interestingly, it was, I think, Kyle's fundamental good, righteous character that has led to him being free now. He was acting on instinct, but that instinct bubbled up out of him. And if he was a more vindictive, angry, murderous type of person, he probably would have seen red and got himself into trouble. So that is to speak very well of him. And it was, good over evil is absolutely the headline of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as a character witness, how could you ever say no to somebody who, and I said this on a different stream, but like, do you know how rare it is nowadays to find somebody with the character and the fortitude that is willing to run into a fire to try and put it out or to protect someone else's neighborhood and community that you grew up in and lived around? That doesn't exist in this country anymore for most people. And we saw that perfectly when the DA was asking, like, well, why did you go there? And his response, befuddled, flabbergasted, in awe, dumbstruck. There was a fire. There's not that many people nowadays that are willing to do that. And I can tell you that's very true. I've been a first responder to 3 car accidents in my life, helping and providing first aid. And there were crowds. And what did the crowds do? They watched. There are not people out there. There's a hell of a lot of them out there that will act and do things. And one of the greatest things I've ever loved about growing up overseas is that German law requires every car to carry a first aid kit. And I do that to this day, because there are 3 occasions where I have saved somebody's life. And it is the most terrifying thing on God's green earth, knowing that you're the only one doing anything and no one else is. So God bless Kyle for doing it.
You know how small that is? I was helping some lady push her car that had died in the middle of rush hour out of a main street in California. And a cop got there eventually as they, hey, there's a car. Somebody come get this thing, right? Cop gets there and he goes, who are you? And I said, oh, I'm the guy in the car behind her. And he just stared at me like I grew a second head out of my shoulder. You don't know her at all? No. Thank you. Had no idea what the hell was going on. You just helped someone just because? Yes. Why is this that rare? But if you're in a major city, that's how it is, right? 4,000 other people drove by while I was sitting there trying to help this lady get her car out of the road. Nobody did shit.
More breaking news. Check my retweets. Tucker Carlson is making a Kyle Rittenhouse documentary and has been filming this entire time behind the scenes.
Oh, wow.
No kidding.
Awesome.
Play the trailer, dude.
Okay, give me one. I'll open it up. It's still not used to all this jazz. Chrome tab, share tab audio. This is Jack Posobiec's thing that you shared. We're going to open it up and then make sure the volume is turned all the way.
Like, once you finally do get to sleep, your dreams are about what happened and you're waking up in a dark, cold sweat. Yeah.
You had dreams about what happened?
Every single night. It's quite scary actually because the dreams feel so real and they're not the same at all. They're all different. They're the different scenarios that run through your head during the day. Like what could have happened? Like I'm alive, but what could have happened? Like what if I wasn't alive, or what if I did let Mr. Rosenbaum steal my gun? It's those type of dreams. The outcome of it's bad, but almost every outcome is either me getting seriously injured or hurt or dead. Those are just the dreams I have on a daily basis.
The defendant will rise and face the jury and hearken to its verdicts.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
How do you feel, man?
The jury reached the correct verdict. Self-defense is not illegal. And I believe they came to the correct verdict, and I'm glad that everything went well. And it's been a rough journey, but we made it through it. We made it through the hard part.
Holy
Ride
shit.
that wave.
Yeah, that's the energy we need.
We are winning so hard right now.
And I'm not tired of it.
Ouch.
Keep it coming, man. Keep it coming.
If there's one thing that I can enjoy about mainstream media is that Tucker Carlson has not been canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is baffling.
I heard, I forgot where I heard this from. It might have been Black Belt Stream, but I had heard that he had basically taken an enormous pay cut to have full control over the show or something like that. So that might be what's going on there.
Well, we appreciate it, Tucker.
Yeah,
we
right.
know he has somebody reading our Twitters and things like that. So, Tucker, we thank you. Keep fighting the good fight. Let's see here. Winter Phoenix Forest Kieran for $5 US. He says the Kenosha kid must have petted a lot of dogs in his life. Their magic must have saved him. Dogs are one of our oldest and closest friends, probably. Strung Up for $10 US says donating to the cause. Well, that money will go to a great amount of projects that we're working on, so thank you. Mirark again for $5 US says, if you need help, Prude, I work in commercial insurance. Well, my Twitter handle is in the stream on here for my ID, so just send me a DM. They are open. The Doll Hook for $5 US, he says, Prude, you need to go talk to my wife for ammo. Again, you can DM me away. I'm all for it. Cam and Miles for $5 US says, where would one go to find info on the event? Augustus Invictus is a base criminal defense lawyer with legal podcasts that might be worth contacting. Well, I would refer to AA on that. I don't know how much we're allowed to speak about it, but it is something that is happening in February, so just trust the plan. But we will try and get a hold of that gentleman. Sandman for £5. He says, thank you. Means so much. Speaking of crying, The Land Before Time is a good film. Illegal Dinosaur in the UK. Don't say it. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce that one. Coney Current Year for £5 says, in the old town of Kenosha, marked some troubled rogues one day held hammers high above their heads and looking for a fray. And he continues for another £5, says, no one dared to ask their business. No one dared to make a din, except for the one kid among them with an AR on his sling. So yeah, there are plenty of parodies for Big Iron on there, and they're wonderful. And I think someone even did the like IRA's like Little Armalite parody. That one's also out there. Quite enjoyable. Zero Kev for $1.99 US. He says Yarvin spoke with Posobiec in an elevator the other day. Well, that doesn't surprise me one bit. Yarvin and Poso get around in very similar circles when it comes to people like Michael Anton and such.
Shit, I spoke with Posobiec the other day.
Well, even better. I wish I had those connections. What on earth did you just send me, Charlie?
I just wanted to know people that this. I just wanted people to know this exists.
Oh, well, then I'll share that right at the end here because I think that's perfect. Back to the comments to make sure I haven't missed anything. Perfect. Okay. And then last but not least is going to be Winter Phoenix Forest Kieran saying, AA is Middle Eastern. They don't seem to have a problem getting into American airplanes if they really wanted to.
It's getting off them. It's
yeah, the landing's the hard part. But I mean, AA, if you're having trouble about coming here, then just come through Mexico, man.
Yeah. And get $450,000.
Yeah, you'll get $500,000 and you'll be good to go. Don't worry. And then you can really set up whatever you want to do with the AA Lodge.
I just don't even want to hear it. If he doesn't show up here, man. Oh, man. Oh, man.
Okay, so I'm going to share this profile that Charlemagne sent me because Mr. D will probably is behind this in some form or fashion. Or would love to.
Behind it is a good word for the description.
I think Semiogogue just said 1776 will commence again.
It will commence again!
This town exists. I'm sure Mr. D would love to find out who this person is. Mr. D's power bottom, political power bottom. The absolute ashes.
Oh my god.
This is what top tier simping looks like.
Yes. I am pleased to note it has 0 followers.
But 100. Oh, who's it following? Deep Lore.
You.
Me apparently. Oh god, that's terrifying. Captain Jaws, the alleged wonderful Sargon. Outsideness, Samuel Martin, Lotus Eaters. Time Stealer is being followed by the power bottom of Mr. D. He follows Peter Hitchens. I'm sure he'll love that. Following Marcus, Kirby, Dina, AM. I blocked Adam Trended.
As you should.
As you should. American Krogan, Geo, JFG, all these people.
I'm surprised Friended had time to do all of that debating while he was prepping for the trial.
Oh, Don, you're on here.
God damn it!
I haven't actually seen D yet.
I haven't seen it either.
That's funny.
Good lord.
Presumably, he'd be the very bottom.
Oh, maybe. Charlie's on there. Evelyn, Scrump Monkey, Mr. Patriarch, Conscious Caracol, Semiogogue going to be on here. Ryan's on here. Mr. Turnip Seed.
It's definitely a top tier follow list.
Most of it's pretty good. Radlib is on here. John D's on
there. There he is. We found it.
And that's,
he's not.
But Semiogogue, you are safe despite the number one person posting physique for Mr. D.
That's a pretty good starter kit for Twitter, isn't it?
This list.
Hey, wait a minute. What is number one posting physique? What are you talking about?
It might be a pretty good starter list for Twitter, but the second to the top right there is the Britisher.
Oh, no.
That is pretty contraindicated,
deeply subversive. But all right, I think that is all of the super chats. I'm going to refresh real quick to make sure. And yes, it is. Okay, so the wonderful gentlemen who have accompanied me now for almost 3 hours. We'll just start at the top here. Charlemagne, do you have anything that you would like to shill or let people know about of what you're doing?
Well, I did a decent stream the other day, a few days ago, on the King Pill channel. A really good cigar stream on Wednesday, and yeah, I think for Carlisle Day, I'll probably do something related to Moldbug on Carlisle, because I'm having it's taking me too long to get through this book of the French Revolution. I won't be ready in time, so as I've been saying, probably next video will be for Carlisle Day on December 4th or 7th or whenever it was.
I think it's the 4th of December.
Okay. It's coming up, so I better get to work.
Yep. Don, anything coming up besides your daily show?
The Daily Show will, of course, continue as normal. I may or may not have some interesting big names to be talking to someday in the near future. We'll see if that happens. But regardless, the side chat is a link to a Twitter for a Joshua R. Ham. And Josh is running for state senate here in Texas to get rid of the rhino piece of crap that currently presides over him. And being as we have been talking about getting rid of these people at a local level, go do that. Go support him. Go follow him. There are web pages, donation things, etc. I believe all available from that Twitter account. Go forth, follow, make popular, etc.
And it is on screen, so you all can go and follow him. And then, Mr. Semiogogue, what are you up to these days?
Oh, I have a few things that are currently under discussion. I hope to return to the subject of the Christianity strategy stream in 2 parts. Turnip had a very good idea for how to manage that, and I'll be going forward with that. We just have to get it scheduled, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I also expect in fairly short order to be talking to Apostolic Majesty again with some of the history aspects of that whole strategy undertaken. And then last, but most certainly not least, I will be talking to you, Prudentialist, as I understand it, on Sunday. Hopefully you're going to be walking all of us through the business with the migrant kerfuffle on the border between Belarus and Poland. I know you've been looking into that deeply, so I look forward to that. I think that's Sunday the 21st, this Sunday at 3 p.m.
That is correct, 3 p.m. Eastern. And last but certainly not least, the man of Bible studies himself, Lambda, what is going on with you?
Yes, that's right. I run a channel called Lambda Bible Studies, and I was thinking probably the stream that's got the most overlap with this stream would be what's it currently called? Chats 15 NRX, where I talked with a bunch of people, including Charlie here, about how does the Bible interact with some of the neo-reactionary thought. Most of the videos, I just take a chapter of the Bible and we talk about what it says. So I don't know how many people listening to this are interested in that. But if that at all catches your fancy, why not try that out? I think it's something a little bit different in your YouTube diet, but something good and wholesome. So, yeah.
And gentlemen, I will add everybody's links into the description. I know I don't have everybody because it's a sort of mishmash together, but don't worry. I'll make sure that everyone's stuff is in here so you guys can follow through and see through it and whatever strikes your fancy. As for me, certainly to last year, because I wanted everyone else to get on. Yes, this Sunday, I'll be having a wonderful conversation with Semiogogue on our weekly international relations show, the Sunday stream, the only show you should be watching on your day of rest, to talk about the current situation in Poland and Belarus and some of the great power politics playing behind it. We had a conversation last week with some Polish nationalists, so it should be a very good time to continue that discussion so we have a better idea of what the heck is going on. And then this Monday, I will be talking with Astral from Substack, a great writer of some renown, to talk about Spangler's Decline of the West, Volume 2. And then for the Thanksgiving weekend, I will be doing some stuff with Bournebrook Magazine. I'll get to have a chance to talk with Alexander Adams and those from the magazine. So there's a lot of good stuff in the works. So yeah, plenty of things to go on. But gentlemen, thank you all so much for coming on. I think that we have gotten a lot of energy here. Kyle Rittenhouse, not guilty on all counts. And so thank the Lord.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure as always.
To channel with Mr. AA, I will end it with my usual stuff. Go out, make something of yourself, be prudent, and take care.